Punks vs. Zombies by John Cronshaw, Episode 9. Chapter 19. Tommy squinted against the harsh midday sun, one hand on the wheel as he guided the van along the desert highway. Beside him, Layla was dozing, her head resting against the window. In the back, Mickey fidgeted restlessly, while Jimbo stared out at the scrubby vegetation passing by. The silence hung heavy in the van, the grim events of recent days weighing on them all. "How much longer till we reach Reno?" Mickey asked. "Should be there in an hour or so," Tommy said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Jimbo leaned forward, clapping a hand on Mickey's shoulder. "We'll be resting our weary bones soon enough." He glanced at Tommy. "Maybe even try our luck at the tables, eh?" Tommy grunted. "I'd settle for a hot meal and a warm bed right about now." "Come on, where's your sense of adventure? We're musicians, Tommy boy, living life on the edge and all that." "All right, one round of blackjack. But if I go bust, drinks are on you." "You're on." Jimbo settled back and turned to Mickey. "So how'd a scrawny bloke like you get into punk anyway?" Mickey brushed his shaggy hair from his eyes. "When I was about 11, my big brother took me to see Green Day. I was totally blown away. The energy, the attitude, Billy Joe throwing himself all over the stage. I'd never seen anything like it. Soon as I got home, I decided I wanted to be the next Trey Cool. Asked my folks for a drum kit for Christmas, and the rest is history." Jimbo snorted. "Green Day? They're barely punk, dude. More like pop rock for sulky teens, if you ask me. They were a gateway drug. Got me hooked on the sound, the ethos. After that, I dove deep into the real deal. Black Flag, Minor Threat, Bad Brains. Never looked back after finding those bands." Layla stirred, turning to look at them blearily. "We giving Mickey a hard time about his questionable taste again?" "Just gentle ribbing, no harm done." Jimbo held up his hands in mock surrender. Mickey shook his head. "Laugh all you want, but if it wasn't for Green Day, I'd probably still be playing in some top 40 cover band back home. And we'd all be the worse for it." Layla reached over and squeezed his hand. "How you found punk doesn't matter. What matters is, you're here now, with us." "She's right, dude." Jimbo nudged him again. "It's the spirit that counts. And you've got that in spades." "Yeah, cheers. Just hope we can keep that spirit alive, you know? Despite everything, we've got to believe there's something better waiting out there." Tommy nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "We'll make it to Reno first, get some rest, see if we can find you something to help with the withdrawal. And then back to Philly." Jimbo tapped Tommy's shoulder. "How about you, Tommy boy?" Tommy shook his head with a small smile. "Goes back to elementary school." "Oh, cool. You were one of those kiddie punks?" "Huh, not quite. My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Thrift, she used to play Blitzkrieg Bop every day when we were tidying up the classroom." "No way," Mickey said. "She played punk for a bunch of 8-year-olds? "She sure did. Said it was to get our energy out productively." Tommy chuckled. "She'd challenge us to get the room straight before the song ended. It was always the highlight of my day, kids racing around, hopping over desks to put things away." Layla grinned. "That's brilliant. What a cool teacher." "Right. I loved it. The manic energy of the music just spoke to me, even then. Got my blood pumping. Few years later, when I got to high school, I heard some of the older kids playing the same song, asked what it was, and ended up falling down the punk rabbit hole on YouTube." Jimbo leaned forward. "Yeah? What did you find?" "Started with the classics, The Clash, Generation X, Sex Pistols, but then I branched out, found bands like Minor Threat, Rancid, NoFX, Discharge, Operation Ivy, Jawbreaker, Fugazi. I must have spent hours every night discovering new songs, reading up on punk history and culture." He shook his head. "It was like realizing there was this whole underground subculture existing right under my nose. Blew my mind wide open." "I'll bet," Layla said. "Finding something you're that passionate about so early, it sticks with you." "It really does." Tommy nodded. "Those were formative years for me. Learned to play guitar trying to mimic those songs. Put together my first crappy band. Punk gave me an identity, you know?" Mickey laughed. "We all get you, man. It's like finding your long-lost family." "Exactly. The music, the ethos, the energy. It just resonated with me on some deep level. Tommy glanced at each of them and found himself grinning. And now here we are, all these years later. Band of punk misfits roaming the wasteland. Jimbo lifted his fist, united in our love of sticking it to the man, be he living or undead. Yeah, man, Mickey bumped his fist. Jimbo turned to Layla. What about you? Layla's eyes lit up. That would be AFI. They were my everything back when I was a moody teenager. She reached around and pulled down the back of her shirt, revealing a tattoo of AFI's signature black rabbit logo on her upper back. What is it about them that drew you in? So many reasons, Layla said. I love how they blend different styles, punk, goth, hardcore. The lyrics are so poetic, but also deep and emotional. She ticked off her fingers as she talked. Their live shows are insane. Davey Havoc has this intense manic energy on stage, and they've managed to evolve their sound so much over the years without losing that distinct AFI essence, you know? Tommy nodded along. They've got a real strong visual aesthetic too, very punk meets goth. Exactly, Layla said. The visuals pair perfectly with the music, and the community is so passionate. We all feel this deep connection to the band and each other. But more than anything, I respect how they've stayed true to their artistic vision after all these years. The integrity and authenticity really comes through in the music. Huh, Jimbo said. I always thought they sucked. Mickey burst out laughing while Layla swatted Jimbo's arm in mock outrage. You take that back. She wagged a finger at Jimbo. Admit it, they've got some damn good tunes. Jimbo held up his hands, chuckling. All right, maybe they're not so bad, but there's still no black flag in my book. Tommy glanced over at Jimbo. What about you then? Jimbo smirked. Funny enough, I've got my mom to thank for that one. Layla raised her eyebrows. Your mom? She's a punk? Ha, hardly. She's about as unpunk as you can get, total Karen, on the school board and everything. Jimbo shook his head, grinning. No, this was back when I was just a kid. He leaned back and smiled. She went and bought Siren Song of the Counterculture, said she wanted it for that one acoustic song. Swing Life Away, Tommy said. That's the one. Jimbo snapped his fingers. Anyway, Mom pops the CD into the car stereo, all ready for her light rock tunes. Mickey frowned. We're talking Rise Against here, right? Yeah. That's not what I'd call light rock. Right? Not what she was expecting at all. She gets through the first few seconds of the first few tracks, hitting skip every time. State of the Union, skip. First drop, skip. He mimed his mom frantically stabbing the skip button as they all laughed. She barely lasts 15 seconds into Dancing for Rain before moving on. Finally breathes a sigh of relief when Swing Life Away starts playing. Oh man, she must have been so confused, Mickey said, shaking with laughter. Jimbo nodded. Mom pops the CD out after that one song and never listened to it again. But I happily took it off her hands and just played it on repeat. I still get goosebumps thinking about that album. It really opened the door to punk for me. He sat back with a sigh. So yeah, never thought my mainstream mummy would be the one to set me on this path. But hey, life's funny like that sometimes. Chapter 20. Tommy glimpsed the Welcome to Reno sign up ahead. He raised his arm and signaled to the other vans to slow down. The streets, which should have been teeming with life, were silent. Each casino they passed a darkened shell. It was as if Lady Luck herself had abandoned ship, leaving behind nothing but shadows and silence. Reno, the graveyard of dreams, Tommy muttered. Must have been one hell of a party, Jimbo said from the back seat. More like a funeral, Layla shot back, her fingers drumming on the dashboard. Tommy glanced back at Mickey, curled up and shivering on the back seat, his clothes soaked through with sweat. Keep your eyes open, everyone. Tommy scanned the streets ahead, gripping the steering wheel tighter. We can't afford any surprises. Surprises are overrated anyway, Layla said. Let's just grab what we need and get the hell out of here. Preach, sister. With Mickey's worsening condition and the unsettling quiet of the city, there was no time to waste. They needed something to ease Mickey's withdrawal, and soon. As they navigated the lifeless streets, Tommy couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of unease. The looming casino seemed to mock them, as if daring them to enter and face the horrors within. but he had no choice. He needed to get back to Neve and Sean. And if that meant taking risks and swallowing his doubts, then so be it. Tommy sped up, driving deeper into the city. They passed more casinos, their once bright lights now extinguished. Boarded-up shops lined the streets, their windows dark and lifeless. "Dude, this place is deader than disco," Jimbo said. "We'll be in and out before you can say anarchy in the U.S. "Ha, good one, Tommy." Mickey coughed out a laugh. "All right," Tommy said. "Keep an eye out for a pharmacy or a hospital, anywhere with medical supplies." "Do you think we'll make it out of this alive?" Layla asked. "Of course we will." He forced a grin. "We're punks, remember? We've been defying the odds our whole lives." "Damn straight," Jimbo said. "Let's just make sure we don't end up like Kim." Tommy shuddered at the thought, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. Mickey thrashed on the back seat for a few seconds, then stopped. Layla leaned over to check on him, her brow furrowed with concern. "He's looking worse." "That's why we're here." Tommy pulled the van into an empty parking lot outside one of the larger casinos. He put the vehicle in park and turned to Mickey, who was still passed out on the back seat. "Mick, hey Mickey." Tommy gently shook his friend's shoulder. Mickey's eyes fluttered open, and he let out a pained groan. "What? Where are we?" "We're in Reno. Just stopped to check things out and scavenge supplies. How you holding up, man?" Mickey sat up straighter, wincing. "I've felt better. But don't worry about me. I'll manage." Tommy frowned. They needed to find something for the withdrawal and fast. "All right, just hang in there a bit longer. We'll find what we need." He gave Mickey's shoulder a reassuring pat before stepping out of the van. The other two vans pulled up on either side. As Roxy and Zero stepped out, the hot desert wind whipped around Tommy, carrying with it the faint stench of decay. He tensed, scanning the area. The streets appeared empty, but anything could be lurking just out of sight. He gripped his bat tight, the worn leather handle familiar in his palm. The area was devoid of both the living and the undead, the only movement a fast food wrapper skittering across the asphalt. Tommy strained his ears for any sound, a groan, a shuffle, a cry, but was met with silence. It set his teeth on edge. "Doesn't seem to be any zombies around. For now, at least," Roxy said. Her bored tone didn't match her darting eyes. Zero nodded, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. "Let's move quickly and quietly. Grab medical supplies, food, water, gas, the basics. No unnecessary risks." Tommy's skin prickled. The stillness felt unnatural, like the desert was holding its breath, waiting. He glanced back at the van where Mickey lay. They were running out of time. Roxy shifted her weight from foot to foot. "Well, what are we waiting for? This place gives me the creeps." "Keep it together, Rox," Tommy said under his breath. But he felt it too. The longer they stood exposed out here, the more his gut twisted. With a final scan of the streets, Tommy gestured to the others. "Zero, Rox, you guys ready to move?" "Right behind you, Tommy," Zero said, his tone cool and collected. "Stay close," Tommy said, his voice tense. "I've got a feeling we're not alone here." "Since when did we let feelings dictate our plans?" Zero said. Roxy laughed. "It's just his version of punk intuition." "Hey, don't knock the punk intuition," Tommy said, managing a smirk. "It's gotten us this far, hasn't it?" Zero sniffed. "Debatable. Just stay focused, all right?" "Always do." Layla, Jimbo, and Mickey climbed from the van. Spike, Dee, and Nix joined them. On Zero's signal, they crossed quickly to the casino's side entrance, eyes and ears alert for any signs of movement. Gripping his bat tighter, Tommy steeled himself for whatever they might face inside. The darkness seemed to press down on them, masking potential threats. He focused on the tap of his boots on the floor, the familiar weight of the bat pushing back the tension. Zero's flashlight cut through the gloom. Tommy squinted to adjust to the dimness after being out in the glaring sun. The cavernous space stood silent, the once bright and noisy slot machines now cold and dead. Tommy gestured ahead. "Let's find a pharmacy or medical room or something." Roxy shuffled close, her eyes scanning the shadows. "Maybe back that way, where the offices are." They moved cautiously through the casino, flashlights dancing across the walls and booths. Tommy's heart pounded as his light revealed dark smears that may have been blood. Someone had fought here, lost here. He quickened his pace. A raspy groan echoed suddenly to their left. Zero swung his light towards the sound as Roxy raised her machete, but the beam only illuminated a flickering slot machine. Tommy released a shaky breath. Come on, stay focused. They reached a hallway labeled staff only that led to the administrative offices. Roxy put her shoulder into a stubborn door, cursing under her breath as it reluctantly opened. Beyond was a medical office, cabinets raided and supplies strewn about. Tommy's heart sank, but he rummaged through the remnants, desperate to find anything useful. In a toppled drawer, he spotted some packets of antibiotics and basic medical supplies. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Let's grab what we can find and get out of here, Tommy said. Roxy shoved packets and bottles into her pack as Zero kept watch. As they gathered the medical supplies, Tommy noticed a locked metal cabinet on the wall. He jiggled the handle, but it didn't budge. There's got to be more stuff behind here. He tried kicking at the lock, but only succeeded in bruising his foot. Damn it, this thing won't open. Layla shoved past him, tire iron in hand. She wedged the tire iron into the cabinet lock and pried with all her strength, letting out a string of curses. But the lock refused to give. No good. This thing is solid. Layla panted, wiping her brow. Zero stepped forward, rifle in hand. He took careful aim at the lock and fired off a single shot. The lock exploded in a shower of metal and the cabinet swung open. Jackpot, Layla grinned. Now we're talking. Tommy let out a shaky laugh. Nice shooting, Zero. Zero nodded, eyes scanning the room for any more threats. Let's load up and get out of here. What do we have here? Layla rifled through the cabinet. Bandages, gauze, surgical tools, gloves. Roxy picked up a few labeled bottles, reading the names aloud. Oxycodone, morphine, hydrocodone. These could really help Mickey. Methadone, dilaudid. Grab all of those, Tommy said. The stronger meds, too. We just need to ration them to Mickey. Layla squinted at more bottles. Amoxicillin, azithromycin, doxycycline. These should cover us for infections. We need to get him started on the methadone right away, Tommy said. Roxy shoved the bottles into her pack, then searched through more of the cabinet. Medical marijuana. Not sure if that'll help, but I'll take it. Ooh, Xanax. Layla laughed. Focus, Rox. Tommy breathed a sigh of relief. Grab it all. Let's move. Working quickly, Layla and Roxy loaded up their packs. Tommy stood guard by the door, bat at the ready, as Zero kept watch in the hall. Layla and Roxy gave a nod and gestured towards Mickey. Mickey stood leaning against the doorframe, his breathing ragged, his eyes unfocused. Tommy opened the methadone, helping Mickey take some. Zero stepped up, a stern look on his face. You really think giving a junkie more drugs is the solution here? Tommy faced Zero. It'll help with the withdrawal. Right now, that's good enough. He's a liability, Tommy. His condition puts us all at risk. We need to think about the group. A tense silence filled the room. Then we'll help him kick it after this. But for now, let's just focus on surviving. Mickey closed his eyes and pressed his back against the wall. Thanks, man. You're a lifesaver. Tommy placed a hand on his shoulder. I want you to promise me something. Promise me you'll kick this habit for good, or at least try. Sure thing, boss. Mickey offered a weak thumbs up. Good man. He turned to the others. Let's get the hell out of here. Zero shook his head. I think we should keep looking around. But, Zero fixed Tommy with a glare. This isn't a discussion. We've got what we came for. And I came here to find food. How are your supplies looking? Tommy shrugged. Whatever, man. You win. Episode 10. Chapter 21. Back outside, Tommy surveyed the available options, squinting at the decaying casinos that lined the streets like tombstones. One casino, less damaged than the others, caught his eye. Let's try this one. The sign above its entrance still read Jackpot in garish letters, though some of the bulbs were shattered. All right, everyone, let's go. And remember, we're here for food and medicine. Keep your eyes open and stick together. Oh, so you're still on your captain's trip, eh? Roxy said. Tommy locked eyes with her, jaw clenched. Got any better ideas? We just get what we need and go, Zero cut in. This isn't the time or place for a showdown. Tommy nodded. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the heavy glass doors of the casino. They creaked loudly, echoing in the empty atrium. As the group entered, their eyes darted around the room, scanning for any potential threats. The casino's interior was dark, save for the glow of a few surviving neon signs. Its gaudy decor now covered in layers of dust and grime. Slot machines stood silent with their screens cracked. Poker tables lay strewn with scattered chips and playing cards. Tommy approached the bar, its shelves empty save for shattered glass and dried stains. He instinctively scanned for liquor, but caught himself. Instead, he rummaged through the cabinets beneath the bar, tossing aside rusty corkscrews and broken shot glasses. Damn, not even a moldy peanut. Wow, this place looks like a ghost town, Dee said. Jimbo snorted. More like a grave for gamblers' dreams. Tommy stopped and studied the layout of tables and machines. Hey, Zero. Zero glanced back, narrowing his eyes. I don't have time. It's not that. He gestured to the tables. Look. Zero inclined his head. What am I supposed to be seeing here, Tommy? The layout. It's almost strategic. It's like someone's trying to funnel people in a certain direction. Zero pushed out his bottom lip. I think you might be right. He turned to the others. Everyone. Let's be extra careful. I think this place might be a trap. Tommy leaned in close to Zero. Way to scare everyone. We need to be vigilant, Tommy. I make no apologies for that. It could be from when the outbreak first happened. You don't know if it's a trap or not. Exactly, we don't know. Jimbo slapped a hand on Zero's shoulder. Well, we always said we wanted to play in Reno. Didn't think it'd be Russian roulette. Man, this place is creepier than a Misfits album, Nix muttered, gripping his guitar-turned battle axe. Anyone else feel like they're being watched? Dee said. It's like we're at some twisted gig, waiting for the crowd to go wild. Focus, Tommy said. We're here for food and medicine. Tommy's right, Zero said. Stay sharp. Zero over there, Roxy said, pointing to a sign that read cafeteria in flickering neon letters. They might have some food left in the stores. As the group approached the door, it was clear that someone had forced it open before them. The metal frame was twisted and bent, its edges sharp enough to slice skin. Tommy hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to turn back. He pushed the door open, wincing at the screech of metal. Inside, tables were overturned, food containers lay smashed on the floor, and the stench of decay hung heavy in the air. Tommy moved cautiously, avoiding the pools of congealed blood and gore that stained the floor tiles. Check the cabinets and fridges for anything still good, Zero said. Look for more first aid supplies too, Tommy said. Tommy, over here. Layla motioned him towards a small storage room tucked in the corner. I think I've found something. Tommy and Roxy entered the storage room together, his eyes slowly adjusting to the dim light. Dusty air filled his lungs, causing him both to cough and sputter. Roxy screwed up her nose and reeled back. What the hell? Crude drawings and scribbled notes covered the walls, depicting things like maps of the casino layout, escape routes, and areas to avoid. Spent bullet casings littered the floor, along with discarded food wrappers and a ratty old sleeping bag tucked into the corner. A small pile of bones lay in the opposite corner. Tommy didn't want to examine them too closely, but he was certain they were human. What the hell happened here? Roxy whispered, her voice quivering. Tommy shook his head, his throat dry. Let's get out of here. I've got a bad feeling about this place. A sudden noise stopped him in his tracks. Wait. Shh. Tommy strained his ears to pinpoint the sound. It was faint, but unmistakable. The low, guttural moans of zombies. Crap, Roxy said. What do we do? Tommy tilted his head. They're outside. Roxy's eyes widened. They're surrounding us. What do we do? Stay calm, Zero said. We grab what we can and get out fast. No heroics, got it? Right. Layla nodded. Let's do this. As they filled their bags with supplies, the moans faded. Tommy strained to hear. Sounds like they've passed. I think we're good, Zero said. Let's keep looking around, see what we can find. Tommy led the way back out of the cafeteria, his bat at the ready. He slipped around a toppled roulette table, its wheel frozen mid-spin. A crash came from across the casino. Tommy whirled, his eyes meeting Roxy's. She stood at a poker table, a cabinet half open, chips scattering around her boots. She glared at Tommy. If you've got something to say it. Just try and keep it down, yeah? Fine. Roxy slammed the cabinet shut. Tommy raised a hand. Settle down. He moved towards her. What's up? You don't want to know what's up. Is it Kim? She glowered at him. It's not Kim. Look. Tommy's voice softened. We're all feeling. I don't think you should be leading us. Tommy froze. Okay. You're making it up as you go along. Tommy's jaw clenched. They were all stumbling their way through this nightmare, trying to keep it together and stay alive. Maybe I am making it up as I go along, but so is everyone else in this godforsaken place. Someone needs to make decisions. If you think you can do better, you should step up. Roxy hesitated, her gaze sweeping over the others' faces. Silence hung heavy in the air. Finally, Zero stepped forward, his face a mixture of annoyance and determination. Fighting amongst ourselves isn't going to help. Tommy, keep leading. But Roxy, keep questioning, that's how we stay balanced. For a moment, Tommy considered arguing, but he knew Zero was right. They needed balance in this chaotic world, and Roxy's questioning kept them grounded. With a curt nod, he accepted Zero's words. Fine, Roxy said, her eyes never leaving Tommy. But I'm keeping my eye on you. Wouldn't have it any other way, Tommy said, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Oi, Tommy, Spike called out from across the room, holding up a dusty bottle of whiskey. Found something that'll take the edge off. Thanks, but no thanks. I'll stick to sorting out our little punk rock family drama, if you don't mind. Suit yourself. Spike shrugged, taking a swig straight from the bottle. But don't say I didn't offer. As the group resumed their scavenging, Tommy couldn't help but dwell on the precarious nature of their alliance. Hey, Tommy, heads up. Jimbo tossed a can of beans towards him. Looks like we're eating like kings tonight. Tommy caught the can deftly in one hand. Huh, nothing says punk rock, quite like canned beans. Very post-apoc, dude. Let's load up the vans and hit the road. We'll find a safe place to hole up and regroup. Sounds like a plan, Zero said. As they moved towards the doors, Layla sidled up to Tommy. For what it's worth, I'm still on your side, Tommy. Mickey, too. Thanks, that means more than you know. Her mouth twitched. Tommy stopped. What is it? You've been doing your best, and we all appreciate what you've been doing. But do you think Roxy has a point about your leadership? You too, Layla. Even you think I'm not cut out for this? I didn't say that. I asked if you think she has a point. There's a difference. He let his gaze wander around the decaying casino, taking in the other band members as they sorted through their scavenged loot. Maybe she does. Maybe I'm not the best person for this, but who is? He made a brisk nod towards Zero. Him? Layla touched his arm. We've survived this long under your lead. You must be doing something right. All right. Let's see what the others are doing. He narrowed his eyes at the others huddled together. Not sure I like them whispering about me. You don't know that. Tommy cocked an eyebrow. You sure about that? Layla gave a shrug and marched ahead. Tommy joined the others as they gathered around a blackjack table, its green felt now a makeshift inventory space. Roxy sorted through more medical supplies. She glanced at Tommy, then looked away. What did we get? Tommy asked. We got water, Jimbo said. Whiskey, chips, chocolate. Tommy clapped him on the back. Good work. He turned to Mickey. How you feeling, man? That stuff kicked in yet? Yeah, I'm feeling it. Feel like I'm gonna puke all over this goddamn table, though. Please don't, Layla said, rolling her eyes. I've had enough of cleaning up after you guys. Hey, I clean up my own messes. Mickey gave a weak smirk. Most of the time, anyway. Tommy shook his head, trying to hide his concern behind a mask of stoicism. He swallowed the lump in his throat and turned to face the group. We've been through hell together, fought tooth and nail to survive. There's been some questions raised about some of my decisions. But I'm trying to get us through this in one piece. I can't promise we'll make it. But I swear, I'll do everything I can to keep us alive. Touching speech, Roxy said. But actions speak louder than words, and so far your actions haven't exactly inspired confidence. None of us asked for this, Roxy, Layla said, her voice soft but firm. Tommy's been doing his best, just like the rest of us. All right, enough, Zero snapped, slamming a fist onto the blackjack table. The sound echoed through the casino, followed by a tense silence. We don't have time for this crap. Let's get these supplies loaded and get the hell out of here. Zero took charge, directing the band members to gather their scavenged items as efficiently as possible. Tommy, Layla whispered as she approached him, her expression unreadable. Just be careful, okay? Always am. He forced a grin that felt more like a grimace. A sudden bang echoed from deep within the casino, followed by a chorus of guttural moans. We need to leave, Zero said, hefting his pack and grabbing his rifle. Tommy spun towards the source of the commotion. Shuffling figures lurched out of the shadows, too many to count at a glance. Oh crap. Chapter 22. Groans crescendoed as the undead burst through the casino doors, a grotesque symphony of growling and gnashing teeth. Positions, everyone. Tommy snatched a casino chip rake from a nearby craps table, gripping it in his left hand as he tested its weight. The makeshift weapon felt surprisingly comfortable in his hand. Ready for some crowd control? Layla took a defensive stance beside him, her grip tight on her tire iron. Let's show these rotting bastards what punk's all about. Got it, Tommy, Roxy called back, her knuckles white as she gripped a slot machine lever like a club. Never thought I'd be graced with such a captive audience, Dee said, brandishing a guitar like a battle axe. They're dying to hear our latest single. Less talking, more smashing, Nick said, flipping a poker table on its side to shield himself from the advancing zombies. All right, let's do this, Tommy muttered under his breath, steeling himself. As the undead drew nearer, he tightened his grip on the chip rake and bat. He signaled Mickey to grab a cocktail tray nearby. Mickey spotted the tray and nodded. He hurled the glasses like lethal frisbees, shattering against the heads of the encroaching zombies. Take that, you undead assholes. Tommy wielded the chip rake like an ancient spear, driving it through a zombie's head before yanking it back out. With a sickening squelch, he tossed the lifeless corpse aside. Playtime's over, you rotting bastards. He swung his bat and chip rake with deadly precision. We're taking back the night. Layla dashed to a roulette table, spun the wheel, and used it to scalp a zombie that leaned too close. Red 13. Watch your left, Layla. Tommy extended the rake to push another zombie into her path, setting her up for another kill. Dee hurled a cup filled with dice at a zombie. Yahtzee! Keep it up, Tommy said, his heart pounding like a frenzied drumbeat. We've got this. Damn right we do, Dee said. Tommy ducked under a zombie's lunge, sweeping its legs with the rake, bringing it down for Jimbo. Jimbo slammed a poker table down on the zombie, crushing its skull. All in. Roxy, incoming. Roxy spun at Tommy's warning and slammed the zombie's head into a machine. Fade to black, Zero whispered, unraveling a guitar string and using it as a garrote to behead a zombie from behind. Another wave of zombies crashed in from a side door. Tommy's heart raced as he assessed the room. They needed an escape plan, and fast. Spotting the confetti cannon near the stage, he yelled to Mickey, "Use that cannon now." Mickey snatched it up and pulled the lever. It blasted confetti, startling the zombies and buying them crucial seconds. Party's over, lads. The smell of blood and stale beer filled the air as Tommy ducked under a lunging zombie, its rotten teeth snapping inches from his face. He swept the chip rake across its legs, bringing the creature down with a sickening crunch. Jimbo, this one's all yours. Thanks, dude. Jimbo snatched up a handful of poker chips from a nearby table. He shoved them into the fallen zombie's mouth with a smirk. All in. The creature choked and gurgled, flailing helplessly before falling still. Tommy scanned the room, searching for any signs of weakness among their undead assailants. With a guttural yell, he used the rake to trip another zombie, sending it sprawling towards Roxy. Roxy, heads up. Roxy slammed the zombie's head into the side of a slot machine before slamming down with her lever. Guess we hit the jackpot, huh? Damn right, Tommy said, taking a moment to catch his breath. Watch out, he shouted, as another zombie lunged at Spike. Spike ducked and drove his drumsticks into the creature's eyes. He turned to Tommy with a wicked grin. I always hit my mark. Nice one, Spike. Spike nodded and began striking at more zombies' eyes, using his drumsticks like deadly skewers. The creatures stumbled and fell, blinded and thrashing. Tommy impaled another zombie on the end of his chip rake and tossed it aside. Stay focused, everyone. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but he'd be damned if he didn't try to keep his friends alive. Failure wasn't an option. Not when Neve and Sean depended on him to get back home. Any bright ideas on how we can get out of this mess, Tommy? Mickey asked between labored breaths, gripping a cocktail tray like a makeshift shield. Working on it. Tommy scanned the room, searching for a way out. As his heart pounded in his chest, he knew that their makeshift weapons would only hold the creatures at bay for so long. They needed an escape route, and fast. Follow me. Tommy leapt onto a blackjack table, chip rake held high above his head. He glanced around, quickly calculating the steps he needed to take to reach safety. With adrenaline fueling his every move, Tommy used the chip rake to vault from one table to another, creating a precarious path through the sea of undead. His bandmates followed suit as they made their way towards the exit. Roxy swung a bar stool like a club, while Dee sliced through the air with a razor-sharp card shoe. Damn, these things are relentless, Layla said, her breath ragged. Welcome to Reno, baby, Nick said, slamming a pipe into a zombie's skull. Let's just hope we get out of here without losing our shirts, Mickey said. Tommy vaulted over another table, feeling the strain in his muscles as he pushed himself to the limit. He knew that making it out alive was a gamble, but he wasn't about to fold. Keep moving. Tommy ran at full speed, finally reaching the exit. He turned back, eyes blazing. Come on! As the other sprinted towards the doors, Tommy burst out of the casino. Cold night air hit his sweat-soaked skin. What did I tell ya? He panted, leaning against the wall as he tried to catch his breath. The house always wins. Good call on the exit, Tommy, Mickey said, wiping at his forehead with the back of his hand. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hands trembled. I owe you one. We all do. Save it for the next round. We're not out of the woods yet. Speaking of which, Layla said, casting a wary glance back towards the casino doors. Where exactly are we going? There's gotta be some place we can hide out until morning, Nick said. Jimbo nodded. Somewhere those deadheads won't crash the party. All right then, Tommy said. Let's find somewhere to stay. Lead the way, Roxy said. He met her gaze and gave a slight nod before turning to the others. All right, but stay close and keep an eye out for those undead bastards. Episode 11, Chapter 23. Tommy glanced back at the zombies still trapped inside the casino, their hands clawing at the glass doors. Would you look at that? Jimbo said, moving back towards the doors and tapping on the glass. Those deadheads can't even figure out how to open a damn door. The rest of the group laughed as they watched the creatures smack against the glass. The doors held firm, keeping them at bay. Ha, guess they only have half a brain after all, Layla said. She gave one last weary smile before her face hardened again. But we can't stay out here laughing all night. We need to get the hell out of this city now. Tommy nodded. No arguments here. Let's grab what we've scavenged already and... Wait just a minute, Zero said, holding up a hand. We can't leave yet. We've barely found any supplies at all. We need to keep searching while we have the chance. Tommy scowled. Are you completely insane? We barely made it out of there alive. It's too risky to stay in this place. He gestured back towards the moaning horde still pounding on the casino doors. We need to leave. Tommy's right, Mickey said. Can't we find supplies somewhere else? Roxy stepped forward, shaking her head. Zero has a point, though. We're desperately low on food and water. There's got to be a grocery store or something a few miles up the road, Tommy said. We can stock up there. And all the small towns nearby have probably already been picked clean, Zero said. Roxy crossed her arms, fixing Tommy with a stare. Where exactly do you expect we'll find supplies if we just blindly drive off into the sunset? Tommy shrugged. What about hitting up some houses in the suburbs? Spike said, lighting up a cigarette he dug from his pocket. Could find some tinned goods or something in people's pantries. Layla pushed out her bottom lip. Hey, yeah, maybe we get lucky and find one of those doomsday prepper types with a loaded cellar. Zero scoffed. While we're wasting time and fuel searching random houses, some of the stores here still have shelves full of essentials, guaranteed. He waved a hand back towards the darkened cityscape behind them. The risk is worth the reward if we plan this right. We get in, load up on supplies, get out. Simple. Tommy bristled, about to argue back when Jimbo stepped between them. All right, dudes, let's chill before this turns ugly. Let's set out our stalls and put it up to a vote. When no one objected, Jimbo nodded. Right then, go on and make your case, Tommy boy. Let's put it to a vote. Tommy took a deep breath. I just think staying is an unnecessary risk with minimal guarantee of reward. For all we know, the place has been stripped bare already anyway. And if we get trapped again, we're zombie food. He looked to Mickey and then the others. Mickey clearly needs rest, ASAP. And I know supplies are low, but we can ration what little we've found already while we search for a safer place to resupply. There's gotta be smaller towns, gas stations, something within a few hours' drive that'll have what we need. Roxy rolled her eyes. Rox? Jimbo held up a hand. You got something to add? Yeah, there's no guarantee anywhere will be safer or have anything left. Here, we've got more options, more potential untouched stores. You really want to gamble on some wild goose chase instead of grabbing what we know is available right now. Tommy clenched his jaw, but Jimbo stepped in again before he could bite back. Fair points both ways, Jimbo said, casting his gaze across everyone's faces. Anyone else? Zero's mouth twitched, but he remained silent. Layla shook her head. Let's put it to a vote then. All in favor of getting our punk asses out of Dodge as Tommy suggests. Tommy raised his hand, looking around expectantly. Only Mickey weakly lifted his hand to vote with him. The rest abstained or voted against. Well, that settles that then, Jimbo said. We're staying in Reno to resupply first. Tommy cursed under his breath. Zero inclined his head. You got something to say, Tommy? This is bull. We all nearly died in there. He gestured to the casino behind them. You really want to risk getting swarmed and trapped again? For what? Some goddamn cereal and bottled water? Enough, Tommy. Zero spoke in a firm, low voice. It's been decided. We're staying. Tommy bit his tongue before he could retort. He had no choice but to go along with the plan, but that didn't mean he had to like it, and he sure as hell wasn't going to let them go in blind and complacent again. You all want to stay and scavenge? Fine. But this time we do it smart and careful. No more going in unprepared and getting trapped like idiots, you hear me? We hear you, Layla said. So what do you suggest? First step is reconnaissance. We send scouts to get the lay of the land, figure out where supplies might still be stocked. Someplace with multiple exits. He glanced around at the deserted streets and darkened buildings surrounding them. There's bound to be a grocery store we can hit quickly. Zero nodded. That's actually a good strategy. We'll split up, scavenge supplies in teams. The others murmured agreement, but Tommy still didn't like the risk. But short of chaining himself to the van in protest, he was out of options for swaying them. He forced himself to nod. All right, fine, but no unnecessary risks out there. In and out, quick and quiet. And at the first sign of swarming zombies, you haul ass back here. No exceptions, no heroics. Understood? Everyone nodded. We should have a distraction, Nick said. Draw the deadheads away so the others can search easier. Good idea, said Layla. She nudged Mickey beside her. How about you put that cocky mouth to use for once? Stand on a rooftop yelling insults with that big mouth of yours. Lure them away. Mickey managed a weak chuckle. Tempting. But in my state, I'd probably pass out and become zombie bait. I'll handle the distraction. Jimbo turned to Zero. Van keys, dude. Zero fished the keys from his pocket and tossed them to Jimbo. Me and Nix can lead a merry zombie chase while you lot grab the goods. Good plan, Tommy said. Just keep the heroics to a minimum, all right? Stay close and don't take chances. We got this, boss dude, Jimbo said with an exaggerated salute. Leave the grunt work to us professionals. Professionals my ass, Spike muttered. Jimbo just laughed as he and Nix headed for Anarchy's child's van. Come on, Nixie boy, let's go lure us some groupies. The engine roared to life, blasting the refused the shape of punk to come through the speakers. Jimbo cranked up the volume before peeling out into the street. As Tommy watched the van speed off, he still didn't like splitting up. But he had to admit, having a noisy distraction to draw the dead away from them was a smart strategy. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull this off without anyone dying after all. But glancing back at the bloodthirsty horde still pounding the casino doors behind them, Tommy knew the odds were always stacked against them now. He turned to Zero. Where to first? Zero scanned each building along the street. There, he finally said, pointing. Chapter 24. Tommy led the rest of the group down the block in search of supplies. Layla, Mickey, and Dee walked just behind him, with Zero, Spike, and Roxy bringing up the rear. Tommy gripped his baseball bat tightly as he scanned their surroundings. The dark, debris-strewn streets were still for now, the only movement coming from bits of trash skittering along the sidewalk. Jimbo's music echoed through the empty city, leading the zombies on a chase away from their location. Let's check some of these shops as we go, Tommy said, but stay alert and ready to bolt. The others murmured quiet agreement. Weapons at the ready, they began methodically trying doors as they passed, but every business was locked up tight. Tommy's frustration grew with each rattle of handles and peer through grimy glass. Were they wasting precious time on a futile errand? This is pointless, Mickey said as they reached yet another locked door. Every place is boarded up or looted already. We're just wasting time we could be using to get the hell out of here. Tommy placed a hand on Mickey's shoulder. Let's just keep looking, man. Check around the next corner up here. There's bound to be some place we can slip into. Mickey gave a listless nod. All right. After trying a couple more fruitless doors, they finally spotted a small grocery store nestled between a liquor shop and laundromat. Tommy waved everyone to gather round. All right, this could be our ticket for supplies. Looks like the front door is chained, but we might be able to slip in through the loading bay around back. Weapons ready, they crept to the rear of the building. The metal door stood half lifted, allowing just enough room to duck underneath into a small office at the shop's rear. Let's load up, Tommy said, nodding towards the store interior. Grab anything non-perishable. Canned food, cereal, nuts. Roxy glared at him. We know what food to get, Tommy. Whatever, Rox, just thinking out loud. They ventured out onto the sales floor. Zero and Tommy clicked on their flashlights, beams slicing between the pitch-black aisles. Tommy swept his torch along the empty shelves to his right, illuminating surfaces covered in dust and rat droppings. Dee said. When's the last time they had a health inspection? Probably around the same time the outbreak started, Spike said. Damn, this place has been cleared out already, Roxy said. There's gotta be something left. Check the lower shelves, Tommy said. Anyone fancy some artichoke hearts? Layla said, holding up a dented can and laughing. Dee made a face. Blah, I'll pass on those. Ooh, look, marshmallows, Spike said. Best food group right here. Keep looking, there's bound to be more. Tommy leaned around a corner. Jackpot, canned soup and veggies. He shone the flashlight over rows of dusty soup cans. Nice, Roxy said. Send some of those bad boys my way. Tommy grabbed armloads and distributed cans out to the others. As they packed away the meager supplies, Mick's phone light flashed over brightly colored bags lined up on a low shelf. He leaned closer to read the label and barked out a sudden laugh. Layla sidled over next to him. What's so funny? Find something good? Oh, I found something all right. Still chuckling, Mickey held up the bag in his beam. Vegetarian bacon bits. Layla peered closer. Shut up. Who would stockpile something so useless? What's the joke? Roxy asked. Mickey waved the bag. We hit the jackpot with these precious non-baconated bacon bits. We'll be eating like kings now. Roxy snatched the bag. Hey, if you don't want to eat them, maybe we could use them to barter, Tommy said. Some survivor out there is probably jonesing hard for fake bacon. A loud crash sounded from deeper inside the store, followed by movement in the peripheral darkness. The group fell silent. Tommy spun, his bat raised and flashlight beam darting wildly to identify the noise. When the noise came again, the shuffling movement sounded wrong. Too light. Too erratic. Squinting into the darkness, he lowered the bat, his pulse still racing. Zero cocked his rifle at the hidden movement. After a long moment, he swore and lowered his rifle with a huff. "Stand down. It's just a stupid cat." Tommy swung his beam around to illuminate the area just as a large gray cat darted out from its hiding spot. He caught the panicked glint of its eyes as it streaked past them, disappearing into the shadows. "Scared me half to death," Layla said, placing a hand to her chest. "Damn thing nearly gave me a heart attack." Zero scowled. "We can't afford mistakes like that. Stay focused." As the others stuffed their packs with supplies, Tommy lingered a moment, brow still furrowed. He swept his light over the shelves and floor where the cat had emerged. An idea struck him. "I'll be right back." Without waiting for a response, Tommy hurried down the aisle, pushing through the door the cat had appeared from. It led into a smaller stocking area lined with shelves still loaded with canned goods and boxes. "Guys, get in here." The others crowded into the doorway. Even Roxy looked impressed. "That damn cat was trying to hide its stash," Lila said. The others dived in, filling packs and boxes. 10 minutes later, laden with as much as they could carry between them, they headed back outside. Tommy did a mental tally of their take. Assorted canned veg and beans, canned fruit, soups, tuna, cereal, peanut butter. Not a feast, but enough to keep the whole crew fed for at least a week. A sudden blaring car horn shattered the quiet night. Tommy jolted, his head snapping around towards the sound. Careening around the corner came Anarchy's child's van. Jimbo pulled a handbrake turn, fishtailing to a stop in front of them. He leaned from the driver's window, one hand on the wheel while the other slapped the horn over and over. Get in, get in. We gotta bounce. Now." Chapter 25. Tommy rushed forward. "What happened? Are you guys okay?" Jimbo's eyes were wild, his grin bordering on manic. "We're fine, but our distracting might have worked a little too well. We got company incoming. A lot of company." He cranked a thumb over his shoulder. Guttural moans echoed from the surrounding streets, growing steadily louder. The blood drained from Tommy's face. The plan had backfired. "Everyone in. Now," Tommy said. The crew scrambled to load their scavenged bounty, while the shuffles and moans of approaching zombies carried on the wind. Too many to fight. With everything crammed in back, Zero leapt onto the front seat, next to Nix, while the rest of the crew wedged together on makeshift benches or piles of kit. Tommy dove in last, barely getting his door latched before Jimbo stomped the gas. Tires squealed as they raced off down the street. Heart hammering against his ribs, Tommy craned around to stare out the back window. Zombies emerged from every side road and alley, pouring onto Main Street in staggering pursuit. "Yeah, ain't she a sight?" Jimbo said, weaving around an abandoned car. "Turns out blasting punk at full volume draws those corpses out like bees to honey. Who knew?" "Guess subtlety isn't really your strong suit, Jimbo," said Roxy. He laughed, swerving hard around a corner. Tommy braced against the doors as boxes and bodies slammed sideways. "But we got the job done and then some." Jimbo turned hard again, narrowly missing another vehicle. "Hate to tell you dudes, but we got a lot of company between us and the other vans." The streets around them swarmed with the shambling dead now, the van's wild trajectory barely keeping them ahead of the grasping hordes. "There's so many of them," Layla said. Jimbo made a sudden turn back onto Main Street. "There's too many swamping the main route," Zero said. "Take the next right, I've got an idea." Jimbo jerked the wheel at the intersection. Their bodies slammed hard sideways again amid shouted curses and protests. "Where to?" "Head for the buildings back behind Circus Circus. There's a maintenance area for the parking garages back there. Service elevators. We can get to the top floors and scout an escape route from higher ground." As Jimbo spun them off the main drag, Tommy locked eyes with each crew member in turn. "I know today hasn't gone as planned, but we can still get out of this in one piece if we work together. Just gotta stay smart and stay brave a little while longer." He gave Layla's hand a squeeze where she clung to her seat. "We'll make it through this." She managed a jerky nod, squeezing his hand back. Bouncing violently as Jimbo clipped a light pole, the van screeched up to the garage's bay doors. The crew flung themselves against the doors until a gap opened wide enough for the van to slip inside. They wedged through with mere inches to spare, ripping a side mirror off in their haste. Inside the vast concrete structure, Jimbo drove up 3 levels and pulled the van to a stop and opened his door. Everyone froze. Tommy held his breath and listened. The engine's ticking filled the silence as everyone piled out. "What's the plan?" Roxy asked. Tommy shrugged. "Ask Zero." Zero rubbed his chin. "We stay here until those things have moved on. If those things are as dumb as I think they are, we should be safe up here." Tommy frowned. "Stay here? We have supplies." He patted the van. "And for what it's worth, we have shelter." "Yeah, dude," Jimbo said. "If the tunes drew them out, something else will draw them away." Tommy's nostrils flared. "We don't know that." Zero squared up to him. "This isn't a discussion, Tommy. We stay here until we can get back to the vans." He shrugged one shoulder. "Of course, you're welcome to make your own way if you'd like." Tommy held his tongue. "You're right. We could all do with some rest anyway. Today's been intense," Zero said. "Yeah, but we're alive. And you're right. We've got food. We've got water. I'm sure we can all wait it out up here for a while." Zero gave a half smile. "I'm glad we're in agreement." Tommy sucked in his bottom lip and gave a slight nod. Episode 12. Chapter 26. An uneasy silence descended on the parking garage. The crew sat huddled in the back of the van, seeking shelter and warmth as the temperature dropped. Tommy rubbed his hands together, trying to generate some heat friction. His breath misted in the air. "Wish we'd grabbed some blankets or something while scavenging," Spike said, shoving his hands deep into his jacket pockets with a scowl. "Come here." Layla wrapped an arm around Spike's shoulders, pulling him against her side. Spike grumbled but didn't pull away. The others shuffled closer together too, shoulders touching, clinging to any heat they could generate in numbers. Tommy watched his crew huddle tighter as the cold sank deeper into their bones. They were running on fumes, physically and mentally. "Come on, we've survived worse than this." Tommy forced some false cheer into his voice. "Remember that week snowed in at that anarchist collective in Minneapolis? No power, no heat. All of us crammed in that tiny-ass living room burned everything we could find just to thaw fingers and toes. I never thought I'd be so happy to see a bunch of smelly crust punks in my life," Mickey said. "We would have frozen solid if they hadn't taken pity and let our sorry asses camp on their floor." "Ugh, don't remind me," Layla said. "They didn't even have a shower." She rubbed her palms together as if trying to scrub away the memory. "I don't think I smelled right for a month after." A ripple of laughter loosened some of the tension. "Yeah, but we survived it together," said Tommy. "Just like we survived that hellscape gig in that Portland hipster joint. We'll get through this night and get back to Philly same as always. All of us together." Dee managed a jerky nod, though his eyes stayed haunted. "Sure hope things work out." An uneasy silence fell again. Zero slipped back into the van from his patrol and cleared his throat. "Streets are still thick with zombies out there, but once daylight hits, I think our path will open up." He eased down against the wheel well with a barely suppressed groan. Tommy studied Zero's face, noting the deepening lines etched around his mouth and eyes. "We've just got to hang tight a little longer," Zero said. "Conserve our energy." Tommy shivered. "Anyone hungry?" He dragged his pack onto his lap and rummaged inside. "We've got a gourmet selection of tinned mystery meat or..." He grinned and dragged out the packet. "Funky baconated soy bits?" Tommy passed around one of the vegetarian bacon packets, insisting everyone take a handful, the crunchy bits providing a welcome distraction. He chewed and smiled. "These don't taste that bad. Nothing close to real bacon, but they're actually edible." Jimbo grimaced. "No, Tommy boy, they're disgusting." Zero glanced around the van before shifting closer. "Doesn't it seem odd to you? A disaster this huge, and we've barely encountered another living survivor for hundreds of miles." Tommy hesitated, then gave a non-committal grunt through his mouthful of bacon-tinged soy. "I'm telling you, there's something more at play here." Jimbo smacked his head back against the van. Kill me now. No. No. Zero's voice softened. Hear me out. He looked to the others. There's no way this outbreak was some freak isolated event. It's too widespread, too calculating. Tommy swallowed and shot Layla an eye roll. It's Agenda 21, man. The globalists are behind this whole thing to thin population and undermine civil liberties. Layla snorted. You know the globalist thing is just some old anti-Semitic crap, repackaged for a less Nazi-fied audience, right? Zero nodded. That's what they want you to think. Jimbo groaned. Zero. Just can it, yeah? No one wants to hear your Alex Jones crap. Alex Jones is controlled opposition. No. It's clear to me that the globalists wanted an excuse to declare martial law and force citizens into FEMA camps by the millions. A convenient zombie crisis provides perfect cover for their human rights takeover. Seriously, Zero? Roxy said. You think anyone would come up with a plan like that? That's quite a leap. I'm serious. It all fits too neatly. Engineered disease to enact medical tyranny just like Bill Gates always warned. Layla buried her head in her hands. Oh my God. Zero held up a finger. First wave of outbreak takes hold, decimates majority of population. Second wave, they roll out a miracle vaccine, which actually further mutates the virus. Suddenly you've got phase 3, zombification contagion. He smacked a fist into his palm. And that's how they do it. Jimbo stroked his stubble. Huh, that actually makes a demented sort of sense. He grinned. What if the zombie virus was engineered by the lizard people, though? Unleashed it through the plexiglass shields around their Antarctic bases so it would spread globally. He waggled his eyebrows at Zero. Maybe this whole bloody mess is just fallout from an unauthorized penguin feast by their starving troops. A round of sputtered laughter went through the van, but Zero himself sat stone-faced. Nix leaned over and nudged Zero with his elbow. Oh, come on, lighten up. Nothing wrong with cracking wise to ease the tension, yeah? When Zero's door expression remained unmoved, Nix reached behind the bench seat and retrieved a glass bottle of amber liquid. How about the universal language of booze instead? Kept this baby back specially for dull occasions. He took a generous swig himself before passing the whiskey bottle towards Zero. Warm your parts, Agent Mulder. Zero eyed the bottle a moment. He took a sip and passed it along with a grunt. As the whiskey made the rounds, Tommy waved it off. I'm good. Thanks. Mickey cocked an eyebrow. You sure, Tommy? We could all use something to take the edge off tonight. He shook his head, lips pressed to a firm line. Not for me. I'm straight edge, remember? Need to stay sharp. Mickey sighed but didn't argue further. Tommy watched the whiskey continue circulating instead, each person taking longer pulls to fight the creeping chill. After a while, Tommy leaned close to Mickey. How you holding up, man? Mickey managed a jerky shrug. I'm coping. Starting to feel a bit more clear-headed, actually. He exhaled hard. Still feel like microwaved crap, though. Tommy silently cursed himself for pushing onwards to Reno, instead of seeing to Mickey's health sooner. The methadone was a band-aid over a gaping wound. It would do for now, but he needed treatment. He gripped Mickey's shoulder. You're tougher than you look, you know. We'll get you sorted proper when we get back home. I promise. Mickey blinked before offering a weak smile. Might hold you to that, Tommy. My own detox dungeon in isolation, yeah? You got it, man. Tommy smiled back. Anything you need. Jimbo waved the near-empty bottle. Oi, Tommy, catch. Tommy grabbed at the flung bottle. Amber liquid sloshed over his hands. Whoa, careful. Jimbo guffawed. Take some medicine like the rest of us, dude. Tommy grimaced at the whiskey dripping through his fingers. The sharp scent stirred temptation. Memories of numbing his anxieties and grief with liquor over the years. Was abstaining just delaying the inevitable? I'm good. Tommy shrugged, avoiding Jimbo's look, and handed the bottle to Lila. How long could he keep his own hope kindled before despair, and drink claimed him too? Aw, dude, since you declined to drink... Jimbo looked around the van as if searching for inspiration. He grabbed the discarded bag of bacon bits and gave it a shake. Punk code requires you have second helpings of these gourmet, zombie apocalypse delicacies instead. It's the rules, Spike said with mock solemnity. The tension diffused as Tommy made a show of munching more imitation bacon to the group's amusement. A pained cry rang through the van. Dee scrubbed at his cheeks as tears welled in his eyes. Lila reached over to wrap her arms around his heaving shoulders. "Dee, you doing okay?" He shook his head, choking back a sob. "It's just all so messed up, you know?" His voice cracked. "We barely made it out back there. Again. And now we're trapped here instead." "Hey, it's not so bad. I mean, what's the goddamn point anymore? We can't keep running and hiding like this forever. Sooner or later, those things are gonna run us down for good." He sniffed and wiped his face. "Might as well be tonight. We're all gonna die anyway, right? Just like everyone else already has." A long silence met his words. Tommy found himself reaching for the discarded whiskey bottle. What harm would a few soothing gulps do, really? Take the sharpest bite off fear and despair. Layla's hand closed firmly over his wrist. Her eyes pleaded with him to stop. Jaw tightening, Tommy forced his hand back down. "I know it feels hopeless now, Dee," Layla said, "but we can't give up yet." Dee shook his head. "Come on, even if it is just us against the world, we still have each other. If we stick together, I know we can make it back home. The bands are family." "Back home to what, though?" Dee said. "We don't even know if there's anything left back there either. The whole East Coast's probably all walking corpses by now, too." He dragged a sleeve roughly across his eyes, his voice dropping low. "You'll see. We'll make it back there eventually, and it'll be empty. Everyone we ever knew just gone. We might as well all be dead already anyway." Tommy stared down at his grubby palms. What were the chances Neve, Sean, and everyone else back in Philly had somehow avoided the outbreak? Maybe Dee was right. Maybe raising his son in this graveyard world was a futile hope. "That's enough," Jimbo's voice rang out. "I don't want to hear any more moaning from you lot, you hear me?" He glared around the group. "We're fighters, survivors. So the world's gone to hell around us. We'll keep fighting our way through hell then." Jimbo jabbed a finger towards Dee and Tommy. "It ain't over till the fat deadhead sings. We're getting back home, and we're gonna find people still alive there too. Count on it." Dee blinked up at the ceiling. "What, like Kim? She won't be there, will she? It's like she never existed. We just left her there without a second thought." A tense silence descended on the group. Zero's jaw tightened. There was no choice to make. She was already dead from the bite. All we could do was keep moving forward. Dee whipped around to face Zero, fresh tears trailing his cheeks. "That's bullcrap. We could have done something, tried to help her somehow, but you just..." His voice cracked as he made a gun gesture with shaking fingers. The infection was too far gone. She had turned. There was nothing left of who she was. He gave a small shake of his head. "I neutralized an active threat before it could spread further or attack the rest of us. Hard decisions had to be made for the good of the group." "Yeah, but you didn't even hesitate. You loved it, didn't you? You freaking gun nut weirdo. You blew her away like it was nothing." Zero bristled at that. "You think it was easy for me? The person she was had already died. That thing wearing her face wasn't Kim anymore." Dee opened his mouth to respond, but Roxy cut him off. "That's enough." She held up a hand, her expression pained. "I know emotions are high, but turning on each other won't help." She reached over to rub Dee's shoulder. "I miss Kim, too. Every damn day. It's just not the same without her." "Yeah, well," Dee said. "Just seems so messed up how fast everyone moves on, you know? We lost someone we cared about. She deserves better than to be just forgotten." "No one's forgetting her, Dee. But we can't dwell on ghosts either. Kim would want us to keep fighting." She grabbed the near-empty whiskey bottle and took another long swig. Her eyes turned distant. "God, it seems like another lifetime when we first met. We were playing some hole-in-the-wall club. Her band opened for mine." She let out a quiet laugh. "First thing I noticed was her pink-tipped mohawk sticking up over the crowd. Then when she jumped up on stage, bass slung low, just oozing punk rock attitude." Roxy trailed off, shaking her head with a sad smile. "We hit it off right away. We hooked up, ended up talking for hours after the show about bands and songs and life." She idly picked at a fraying thread on her shirt. "She just got me, you know? She understood the high I get creating music, bearing my soul to the strings, connected with that passion in a way most people don't. Layla shifted closer, looping an arm through Roxy's. "You two did always vibe so well together," she said. Roxy's expression turned wistful. "We were kinda perfect for each other in some ways, but the timing was always off. Other relationships getting in the way and crap. The romance angle just fizzled out." She stroked a thumb over the bottle's worn label. "The friendship stayed strong though. Bond like that don't break easy. We'd get together and jam sometimes between tour stops. She'd noodle these bass lines that just changed the whole feeling of my songs." Roxy smiled sadly. She just understood how to take the random chords in my head and ground them into something bigger, you know. Lock it all together into a sound no one else could have imagined. She shook her head. Kim could wail some sick notes, but her songwriting was even more killer. She had these heavy lyrics ripped straight from the heart, just laid herself wide open without fear. She held Dee's gaze. "Point is, there was nobody else like her. She left one hell of a void in all our lives." Her eyes softened. "I know you looked up to her too, first big tour and all." Dee rubbed at the lingering wetness on his face. "Yeah, she kinda took me under her wing, you know. Told me war stories about the punk life, taught me how to keep guitars tuned." He choked out a weak laugh. "Hell, she even slipped me my first beer at that rest stop in Iowa. Said if I was man enough to live on the road with her crew of degenerates, I was man enough to drink pisswater beer too." Laughter rippled through the group. "Definitely sounds like Kim," Layla said. "She was one of a kind," Spike said. Roxy raised the bottle. "Here's to you, Kim, keeping it punk as hell to the end." She took one last swig and passed the bottle to Dee in offering. "We carry her spirit with us in our music now." Dee accepted the bottle. He stared down into its near-empty depths for a long moment before taking a shaky sip. "We won't let her be forgotten," Layla said. Dee managed a jerky nod as he handed the bottle off. One by one, they each took a sip. The bottle reached Tommy and he raised it before passing it on. An uneasy quiet fell over the group again. Tommy cleared his throat. "Tell you what, soon as we get back home, we should do something together. Work up the sickest tribute to Kim." Roxy dabbed her eyes and nodded. "Damn right. She'll be looking down ready to heckle our sorry asses if we don't come up with something worthy." She scooped up Dee's hand, giving it a squeeze. "But we won't let her down, right, guys?" Roxy cast her gaze around their huddled circle. "We carry on rocking twice as hard and loud to make up for the empty spot she's left. Keep fighting the good fight, because it's what Kim would have wanted." Yeah, okay," Dee said. "She'd definitely want us out there kicking zombie ass and taking names. For Kim." "For Kim," the rest echoed. Zero rubbed the back of his neck. "I regret what happened with Kim. My focus was solely on necessities for group survival rather than personal connection. I didn't know her like you did." Zero cast his gaze down. "Perhaps certain choices could have been handled more delicately. If I've come across as cold and clinical, I apologize." Zero glanced between Roxy and Dee's surprised faces. "You both speak truth. Her memory carries on in the family she left behind. And perhaps I acted hastily." He opened his hands. "But I swear it was not out of malice." Dee's mouth gaped and he shook his head. I don't know what to say, thanks, man." Tommy rubbed his eyes and caught Layla swiping her own stray tears. She reached over and embraced him in a tight hug. Zero slipped out as the others lay down to sleep. Tommy closed his eyes and pictured Neve and Sean. He hated not knowing where they were or whether they were still alive. After a while, Zero returned. "Good news. The zombie activity out there is finally dying down. If we're making a break for it, I say we go now while the coast is clear." "You heard the man." Tommy sat up and shook away the tiredness. "Let's get the hell out of here." Roxy shook her head. "No, Tommy. We need rest." "Yeah," Jimbo said. "And half of us are drunk." "All right." Tommy glanced up at Zero. "That good with you, man?" "I will take first watch." He stepped back outside and slammed the door shut. "Night, everyone," Jimbo said. "Hope you don't mind Nick snoring." Episode 13, Chapter 27. Tommy stirred with the first gray hints of dawn. his back protesting from a night cramped in the van. He shifted Jimbo's foot from his face and winced as sore muscles and chilled bones made themselves known. The short hours of restless sleep hadn't been nearly enough after the emotional and physical strains of recent days. But daylight also brought harsh reality back. They were still trapped in this concrete tomb surrounded by the living dead. The parking garage hadn't provided true sanctuary, just an uneasy reprieve. He scrubbed a rough hand down his face and sat up. Most of the others appeared still asleep, though fitfully judging by the grimaces and muffled groans. Only Zero was already up and alert, peering vigilantly out the driver's side window. "What's the view look like out there?" Tommy asked, his voice croaky. He crawled forward between slumbering bodies towards the front. Zero cast a glance back at Tommy. "Still overrun, but movement has thinned overnight at least. I estimate a 40% reduced threat since yesterday." Tommy settled into the passenger seat, wincing again as his spine realigned. He opened the door and stepped outside, his breath misting in the air. Hugging himself against the chill, he ventured towards the parapet and glanced down at the surrounding streets. Dozens of zombies still shambled around, but the morning light was still too gray and diffuse to reveal the true scope of their predicament. He turned at Zero's approach. Why are they still lingering down there? Thought zombies tended to lose interest without active prey. They should have wandered off by now. Zero gave a shrug. Instinct perhaps still draws them to our location if they caught scent of living flesh nearby. Who knows how those things truly operate? Perhaps on some dim collective memory that food source is near. Tommy frowned. Or maybe they just sensed a bunch of juicy punk rock snacks holed up in the van. We're like babies in a shark tank. Zero slid a sidelong look over at Tommy, one eyebrow arched. Your cynical metaphors illustrate nothing beyond fatalistic thinking, which is rarely productive. He raised his chin and gazed across the city. Mental resilience now is key if we have any hope of fighting free. Tommy bit back further remarks, conceding Zero's point with a grunt. Tommy let the quiet stretch while studying the undead's movements more closely. The passenger door creaking open made both men start. Layla dropped from the van and gave a tired half-smile before joining them. "Morning." "Hey." Tommy turned back to watching the zombies. "What you doing?" Layla asked. Tommy shrugged a shoulder. "Just trying to work out how we'll get out of this place." Layla leaned over the side. "Maybe if we threw stuff to draw them away, created a distraction." She trailed off. "I don't know. There's so damn many still. Too many variables and uncertainty about how they would react anyway," Zero said. His eyes remained locked on the milling hordes. "Miscalculation risks compromising our one secure stronghold here. There's got to be some way of thinning them out, though," she said. "Some tactic or trick we haven't thought of yet." Tommy racked his brain, but his mind was a fog. A scuff and metallic crunch had all three twisting sharply. But it was Roxy kicking at a discarded soda can near the van's rear bumper. "We're screwed here." She marched over to join them. "If we let much more time go by, they could swarm us completely. Then we're just canned meals on wheels." She glared at Zero. "We need a solid escape plan because I'm not dying, trapped cowering in this friggin' parking garage. You feel me?" Zero flinched. Then his face became hard. "It's funny how the biggest critics never provide answers of their own." "Getting each other's hackles up won't solve this, guys," Layla said. "Let's keep the brainstorming productive, yeah?" She looked between Roxy and Zero before gesturing for the rest of the crew to join them. "Maybe with all our brains combined, we can MacGyver our way the hell out of Dodge." The others shuffled over, bleary-eyed. Even Jimbo seemed subdued as he crossed his arms and glowered down at the oil-stained concrete. Tommy dropped his hands from massaging his throbbing temples. "All right. The simple fact is we can't stay here. The zombies are thinning out, so I say we get back to the vans as soon as possible." He cast a glance at Jimbo. "Zero, I say you should drive us this time. Get back to where we're parked and hit the road." Zero shook his head. "That doesn't work for me." "All right. Jimbo, you—" "No," Zero said. Tommy glared. "All right. What's your brilliant plan then?" "Factoring in current levels of undead, we cannot safely eliminate enough to carve passage for the vehicles yet." He raised a hand to stifle Tommy's protests. "However, on foot, a small group could plausibly loop a few blocks around towards where we left the other vans." Tommy shook his head. On foot, when we have a perfectly good van? Which also happens to be our only van at the moment. Our only means of transport. Our only protection against those things. Zero eyed each of the bandmates in turn. Tommy ground his teeth, but as much as it galled him, Zero was right. He sucked a sharp breath and met Layla's eyes. Around them, the others shifted on feet or cracked knuckles. Right then, Tommy clapped his hands. Let's do this thing. We don't all need to go, Zero said. I suggest no more than 4. Tommy tossed his van keys in the air. I'm going. Me too, Layla said. Roxy shrugged. I'd best go too. No one knows that van as well as I do. Tommy looked around at the others. Anyone else? Dee stepped forward and raised a hand. Yeah. Why the hell not? Tommy nodded. Let's go raise some hell. Chapter 28. Tommy gripped his bat, his palm clammy on its worn handle. He met each crew member's eyes as they stood tensed and listening. Tommy ushered the others single file down towards the parking garage's ground floor. He strained every sense, tracking the faint raspy undertones of the dead outside, while sweeping alert eyes through the vast concrete. The faintest scrape of dragging footsteps echoed from deeper in the structure. Tommy whipped towards the sound, holding his breath, bat poised. A lone zombie rounded a concrete support pillar ahead, seemingly oblivious to their presence. Tommy used subtle hand motions to direct the crew into concealing alcoves behind the pillar rows. He spotted a promising fire door off the main vehicle bay and risked a subtle shoulder tap to urge the crew onward again. Slowly, warily, Tommy crept from cover, the others following close behind. Each soft scuff of the concrete came like a slap to the face. But step by step, holding his breath, Tommy inched along, drawn by the beckoning side exit just ahead. A sharp crack split the air. Layla gestured down in dismay at the can lying crushed under her boot. The noise grabbed the zombie's attention. Shoulders hunching, it wavered unsteadily around to face the frozen group with milky eyes. Layla bolted. In 3 quick strides, she snatched up a brick fragment and hurled it at a nearby car, cracking its windshield. The zombie swiveled towards the new sound, limbs tangling in its abrupt change of course. Go, go, Tommy signaled for them to move. Keeping low, he led the others ahead. They plunged through the fire door, slamming it shut behind them, and into gloomy concrete service halls. Rounding a corner, he stopped at the sight of 3 zombies wandering vaguely up ahead. Dee collided with his back. Damn it, Tommy, warn a guy next time. Tommy raised his hand and glared at Dee before gesturing to the zombies. We can't go back. Dee's expression dropped. Oh, crap. Tommy pressed himself against the concrete wall, not daring to breathe, his pulse roaring in his ears. After waiting in frozen silence, the last wavering footsteps faded around the next hall bend. Tommy gulped a steadying breath, gesturing for the group to follow again. The outside door came into view past a short loading dock. Tommy motioned the others ahead. Safely through, he eased the door closed a metallic scrape, then leapt down to the alley below. His crew stood slump-shouldered along the alley's opposite wall. Groans and grasping hands grew nearer. Go, go! Other way! Tommy's feet pounded on the asphalt as he sprinted forward, his bat swatting away the encroaching dead. Skidding around another blind corner, the group pulled up, their escape cut off again by a couple more zombies, blocking the alley mouth ahead. Tommy spun back, but the original zombie mob stumbled into view. We're surrounded! Roxy darted forward, frantically flashing a broken bit of mirror out in front of the new zombies. The bright, waggling reflection through the alley shadows seized both deadheads' attention. Lurching towards its bobbing light, they shuffled after it. Brilliant, Layla said. This way, hurry! Roxy gestured the crew through the gap and tossed her flashing lure down a side passage, diverting the small mob further. Tommy waved the others forward, his lungs heaving. New shapes peeled from the shadows ahead, staggering corpses blocking their way. No, Tommy skidded to a halt. He pressed back against the brick wall, clutching his bat with nowhere left to run. The fresh wave slouched closer, trapping them. Tommy snarled in desperate fury. A small, scuffed sound next to him made Tommy glance over to Dee. A silent exchange passed between them as Dee gave a resolute nod. Before Tommy could ask what he meant, Dee broke from the defensive huddle towards the mob ahead. Snatching up a nearby bottle, he began banging it hard against a metal dumpster. "Hey, yeah, over here, you ugly skin sacks." Tommy stared. "Dee, what are you doing?" "Go. But, just go. I've got this, Tommy." Dee turned back to the zombies. "That's it, come get a taste." The zombies wavered and moved towards Dee. Still smashing his noisy distraction, Dee backed away from Tommy and the others, clearing an escape route. "Dee, no!" Tommy lunged forward, but Layla grabbed his arm, holding him back. "Don't," she said. "You can't help him now." Sick understanding crushed Tommy's chest. Dee was buying life for his friends with his own. Bile rose in Tommy's throat as he stood frozen. "Tommy, we gotta go." Roxy yanked his numb body back towards their cleared escape route. Tommy tore his eyes away from Dee as the undead tide closed in on him alone. Staggering into movement, Tommy fled with the others away from both the encroaching swarm and Dee's screams fading behind them. Tommy stumbled into the dingy sunlight outside, his vision blurred by tears. He turned back once more as Dee disappeared beneath the churning mass of zombies. The screaming stopped. "We need to go," Layla said. Tommy forced himself to keep moving. The group ran on a few more blocks in silence before slumping against an abandoned storefront to regroup. No words existed. Dee was gone. Tommy roused himself enough to lean over and place his arms around Layla and Roxy, tears streaking their faces. "Come on," he managed. "We've got to keep moving." Layla nodded. Wordlessly, Roxy threaded her fingers through Tommy's own for several moments as they walked before loosening her grip again. Chapter 29. "We're still a way off from the casino," Tommy said, "but I think I spotted a route to slip closer." Roxy and Layla moved in silence, dipping between parked cars and doorways. "Alleys seem clearer for now, and we can maybe climb over that low roof ahead too, stay off the street for a block or so." Layla and Roxy both nodded. "We should maybe find ways to distract and pull more zombies off the main drag too if we get desperate. Noise traps in empty buildings to thin resistance ahead of time." Urgency fueled Tommy's thinking, despite the risks involved. "Let's do this smart and fast." He pointed towards the beckoning rooftop access ladder nearby. "If our luck turns, we can barricade choke points behind us at least, control the field where possible." "You sound like Zero," Layla muttered. "Just trying to keep us focused. It's either that or..." He climbed the ladder with gritted teeth, the muscles in his arms burning. Up on the low rooftop, Tommy made a cautious circuit, checking the roof was clear. He spied the casinos just a few blocks over. With a run-up, Tommy leapt across a narrow alleyway to the next building. A sudden scrabbling on the tar paper roof made Tommy spin, his bat raised and ready. But it was just pigeons startled from their nesting. Layla smothered a choked laugh next to him. Roxy grinned, giving Layla's shoulder a little shove. "Bunch of twitchy chickens we are," Tommy said. "Speak for yourself," Roxy said. Edging past skylights and sagging antenna lines, they drew closer to the casino block. Tommy stopped at the roof's edge and almost wept at the sight of his and Roxy's vans parked half a block away. Opting for speed over stealth, Tommy slipped down a rusty drainpipe. Eyes sweeping their immediate area, he signaled for Layla and Roxy to remain still. Squinting towards the familiar vehicles, no zombies stood between them. "How's it looking?" Tommy started at Roxy's voice. "Clear as far as I can tell." "You sure there's nothing hiding nearby?" Tommy shook his head. "Nope." As they edged towards the vans, Layla gasped and gestured to a trio of zombies shambling past the vehicles. Using hand signals, Tommy directed Layla and Roxy in a wide arc around the zombies. Crouched behind a car, Tommy tightened his grip on his bat. As the zombies drew closer, Tommy gave the nod. He lunged forward, striking hard at the nearest zombie, sending it sprawling. Layla smashed her tire iron against a zombie's face as Roxy darted in with her machete, taking them down by the knees. Two corpses collapsed, hamstrung in a shrieking heap. Channeling all the rage and fear of the last few days, Tommy swung wild blows with his bat, again and again until there was only wreckage left and his lungs burned. Roxy and Layla stared at him, their mouths gaping. "Come on." He pointed his blood-smeared bat towards the vans. Let's not hang around, eh? He raced over to his van, keys shaking in his hand. Do you want me to do that? Layla asked. Tommy nodded and jogged around the passenger side and leapt onto the seat, slamming the door behind him. Layla started the engine and waved at Roxy, pulling away from the casino. She let out a shaky breath. Let's get back to the others. Tommy stared from the window, his jaw tight, images of Dee's last moments etched in his mind. You all right, Tommy? Tommy's nostrils flared. Never been better. Episode 14, Chapter 29. Exhaustion hit Tommy as he stared from the passenger window. Layla steered through the debris-strewn city, her watery eyes fixed on the road ahead. Tommy shook images of Dee's last moments from his mind, trying to bury them, along with everything else since Berkeley. The parking garage loomed ahead, concrete and shadows concealing whatever remained inside. He hoped Mickey and the others were okay, that the zombies hadn't managed to find their way up to Zero's van. Layla eased their van beside the garage entrance. Squinting towards the upper levels, she let out a sigh. What's up? Tommy asked. I don't want to go back into that place. Could still be zombies wandering the lower floors. Tommy's mouth twitched. Signal them. Layla punched the van's horn, startling Tommy as the sharp blare cut through the morning gloom outside. Seconds crawled by with no hints of response. Layla hit the horn again, and another blast came from Roxy's van. Come on, give me a sign here, Layla muttered under her breath. She leaned on the horn once more. A shape emerged from the upper deck. Zero shouted something. Getting only confused looks, he made exaggerated ambling motions, then pointed off down the street. I think he wants us to draw the zombies away, Tommy said. We'll pull a Pied Piper, lead the deadheads away with noise, then double back quiet. Like Jimbo did? It worked, didn't it? Layla sniffed. Too well. If we can draw them away from our way out, fine. She restarted the engine and pulled away from the garage, making her way along the street. Just hold off the horn for now. As Layla drove at a crawling speed, Tommy watched the side mirror for shambling shapes. A couple of zombies staggered into view, listlessly wandering without aim. Take that next left and slow down more when you can, Tommy said. No need bolting away quite yet. We want to give Zero and the others a clear opening, not lead more of those things to block their way. Layla grunted. Tommy followed her worried glance towards slumped Rex. Let's make sure we don't get barricaded in, yeah? Layla whirled on him with a glare. I know what I'm doing, Tommy. He raised his hands. Sorry, I'm sorry. No, I shouldn't have snapped at you. Tommy sniffed. Things are tense. I can take it if you need to let off steam. He forced a smile. We're cool, right? Layla nodded. Always. She gestured to the horn. What do you reckon? Do it. Layla honked the horn and rolled the van forward. She honked again, and again. New zombie clusters wandered onto the street ahead, cutting off an easy detour. Layla muffled a sharp curse, braking hard. Go faster, Tommy said. Layla slammed her foot down on the gas and hurtled forward. The van clipped a couple of zombies, hurling them to the sidewalk with a resounding crack. Good one, Tommy said. Layla smacked the horn again and slowed down, drawing out more zombies before speeding forward again. She took another turn, and the parking garage came into view. They're not there. Tommy gazed up at the garage, looking for any signs of Zero's van. Damn it. What should we do? We keep moving, keep drawing those things away. How the hell are we going to avoid being circled in if Zero's crew gets stuck in there? Tommy winced at the thought. We just keep tight loops circulating best we can, buy them a chance to get through. Layla made another loop around the city, blasting her horn and drawing out more zombies. They passed the parking garage again. Layla frowned. Where the hell are they? They must be trying to get out. What if they've already left? What if they're already out of Reno? We'd have seen them surely. We don't know that. Tommy sighed and glanced at the garage in the side mirror. You're right. We'll give them a bit longer. We can't abandon Mickey. We're not abandoning anyone. If Mickey's with them, he'll be safe. Layla sniffed. Yeah, right, he's withdrawing. And I don't think Zero's going to help out when things get bad. We got him methadone. No, you've got his methadone. and if he doesn't get another dose soon, he'll start spiraling again. Silence stretched out between them before Layla spoke. That's 2 full revolutions since Zero's signal. She turned the corner and smacked the horn again. More zombies filled the streets, and Layla hit the gas. She swung them around towards the garage again. Zero's van burst from the garage and raced off down the street. Gun it. Layla followed in Zero's wake, Roxy's van close behind. Tommy heaved sideways as Layla swerved to avoid a cluster of zombies. Block by block, they pushed onward. Tommy finally breathed deep as Reno faded behind them. They were clear. "I think we're past the worst," Tommy said. "Don't say that. Don't tempt fate." Tommy turned to her. "We'll get through this, you know?" She kept her eyes on the road. "I hope you're right." Chapter 30. Tommy stared at nothing as Layla guided the van back onto the open highway. The rural road unfurled under the late morning sun, a more welcome sight than sagging power lines and boarded shop fronts. A heavy silence still choked the van's interior, lingering exhaustion and grief resting like a shroud. When the first gas station appeared, Zero pulled off the road. "Looks like we're taking a break," Tommy said. "Thanks, Captain Obvious." Layla pulled their van to rest beside the aging fuel pumps. As the others piled out, Tommy stuck the nozzle in their tank, then leaned heavily upon the van grill, the worn store sign creaking in the breeze. He took slow, steadying breaths as the others began migrating towards him. Jimbo gave Tommy a broad grin and embraced him in a hug. "You missed out on Shea asphyxiation, dude, where windows stayed shut and any fart lingered for 50 miles. It's good to see you, Jimbo. You too, squeezed legroom I can deal with, but let's just say certain comrades kept stinking the place up." He nodded towards Mickey, staggering closer. Tommy chuckled. "You good, Mickey?" Without answering, Mickey came in for a tight hug, slapping a hand on Tommy's back before stepping back, his forehead coated with sweat. "I'm gonna need some of that medicine, man." "We'll get you sorted, Mickey. Don't worry." He shook his head and smiled. "Can't tell you how good it is seeing your ugly face again." Mickey blinked back. "That was pretty intense back there, huh? Was starting to wonder if my number got called back there. One of those dead bastards nearly made me its bitch." "You coming back with us?" "Of course, man. If I hear another thing about the New World Order, I swear to God I'm gonna start ripping my hair out." "That's good, man." He clapped Mickey on the shoulder. "Glad to have you back. And we've got enough of that stuff to help you get back on your feet." Mickey looked past him and gestured to the Minx van. "What's Roxy doing?" Tommy followed his gaze. Roxy remained in the driver's seat, staring into the distance. He shrugged one shoulder. "Been an intense few days." "Yeah, you think she's all right?" "We'll keep an eye on her, make sure she is." Her gaze remained locked unseeing on the middle distance, her hands still tight on the steering wheel. Tommy jerked a thumb towards her. "I'll go speak to her." Before he had chance to move, Zero arrived stone-faced before him. He clasped Tommy's shoulder. "Was starting to worry you were a goner back there." He released his grip. "I'm glad you made it." "You too, man." Zero gestured to the Minx van. "Roxy and Dee are still in there. Think they've had a falling out or something." Tommy bit down on his bottom lip. "Dee didn't make it." "Wait, what?" His fists clenched. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I am saying something." Jimbo tapped Tommy's shoulder. "Did you just say Dee's dead?" Hating himself, Tommy turned to face him and gave a weak nod. "There was an ambush we couldn't outrun in the city. Dee saved us so the rest could escape. He went out hard, taking more with him." Jimbo just stared, mouth working silently. Spike joined Tommy's side, his hands fumbling to light a cigarette. "You sure?" His voice wavered. Tommy closed his eyes. "Yeah." Spike turned and punched the van, his face contorting with pain. "Hey," Tommy said. "What you doing, man? He saved us. If it wasn't for Dee, we'd all be dead. He saved us all." Spike glanced down at his knuckles with detached blankness. Tommy shifted his weight. He was a hero. This is your fault, Tommy." He took a step forward and jabbed Tommy's chest. "He'd still be here if it wasn't for you and your stupid plan." Roxy's door slammed, and she marched over to Spike. She took his wrist and turned his hand, examining the knuckles with a clinical eye. She released her grip and glared at him. "Hurting yourself won't ease the loss, and blaming Tommy is a douchebag move." But no, he did the best he could back there. We all did. Dee sacrificed himself so we could all live. It was his choice, his call. He went down how he wanted to. Don't you dare take that away, and don't you dare put that on Tommy. Spike looked between Roxy and Tommy, tears rolling down his cheeks. Zero stood nearby, his eyes fixed on Tommy. Tommy took a breath. You should blame me. It should have been just me and Roxy. We didn't need 4 of us. Probably made things more risky. Again with the guilt savior complex, Tommy. Roxy glowered at him. Stop trying to shoulder blame that's not yours. Zero grunted. The issue isn't Tommy playing leader. It's him making unilateral calls based on ego. I wonder if there's more to this. Oh, that is such crap, Zero, Roxy said. Don't pretend you've got some moral high ground judging calls you never had to make. Tommy tried saving everyone. But Dee's the one who actually did it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the one who wanted to stay back guarding the van. It was a tactical decision. The road to hell, blah blah yeah. Spike shoved between them with an eye roll. How's about we don't all go savaging each other when there's zombies happy to handle that for us? He gestured around the group. We've lost 2 of our own, 2 from our band. Can't even call ourselves that anymore. He dropped his cigarette and stamped it into the asphalt. We've all done what we've had to survive. Ain't our place throwing stones about right or wrong choices. Dee did what he thought was right. Tommy did what he thought was right. He narrowed his eyes at Zero. So screw you and the horse you rode in on. Nix drifted up beside Spike, wrapping one slim arm round his lean waist. A heavy silence draped the group again. A sudden nudge against Tommy's shoulder made him glance left. Roxy eyed him levelly, her expression unreadable. She searched his face a moment longer, then shook her head. You can't own the blame for group decisions, Tommy. It's wasted energy that just hurts more in the end. She took his hand and squeezed. Trust me on that. Too numb to respond, Tommy managed a grateful nod. Roxy maintained a firm grip for a few wordless moments before releasing his hand. We should say a few words, Spike said, swaying in place, his eyes fixed on the mottled concrete. Another bandmate. He shrugged. I mean, what can I say, man? Dee was solid, great friend, great guitarist. He gazed up at the sky. I'm gonna miss you, man. Amen, Layla said. Dee knew how to rock. He was a freaking hero. Saved me, Tommy, and Rox. The fact we're here now is thanks to him. I'll never forget that. Yeah, Tommy said. We can never repay that debt. We can, Zero said. We repay it by getting through this. Exactly, Roxy said. He died on his terms. The best way we can pay tribute is to make what he did mean something. Zero dipped his head. I didn't know him long, but what he did for us speaks volumes. Roxy turned to Spike. Remember that festival spot Dee scored us in Richmond? Yeah. Spike laughed. Barely into our first tune before Thunderstorm of the Century opened up. Lightning turned the stage boards into an electric chair. It was insane. Both musicians cackled while the others looked on. Right, Roxy said. He was so chuffed scoring that spot. I don't think a wild grizzly could have torn him off that stage once the amps started blaring. Yeah, and I remember him chewing out that promoter, trying to get us to stop. Raw nerve, that one. I swear that promoter nearly pissed himself getting away from Dee's glare. When the laughter faded, Mickey stepped forward. Dee saved us all, man. He went out like a goddamn hero. Spike nodded. Dee was family, but he didn't deserve to go like that. Layla placed a gentle hand on Spike's shoulder. None of us do, but his sacrifice means we have a chance to keep living. Zero sighed. All we can do is keep moving forward together. Nick squeezed Spike's hand. Dee would want us to remember him with smiles, not tears. Roxy nodded. Nix is right. Dee loved life on the road. The best way to honor him is by sticking together. Jimbo approached Tommy. No one blames you, man. We all know you did your best back there. He pulled Tommy into a bear hug. Tommy hugged him back, finding comfort in the embrace. When they parted, he turned to the group. Let's not let Dee's gift go to waste, yeah? Spike wiped his eyes and glanced up at the clouds. Rest in peace, man. Rest in peace, everyone echoed. Spike straightened up and gestured to the vans. We should get back on the road. Still got a long ways to go. Zero unfolded a map across the hood of his van, the group crowding round. He traced a line with his finger. If we take this route here, we can reach Salt Lake City tomorrow. Jimbo wandered over to Tommy's van, glancing between the open side door and Zero's map. Hey, mind if I ride with you guys again? Could use a change of scenery. Before Tommy could respond, Zero looked up from the map. Why aren't you riding in your own van? Sorry, dude. Jimbo hauled himself inside. Seats are comfier over here. Now hold on a... Jimbo slammed the van door shut. Tommy glanced at Jimbo, then back at Zero. Guess that's settled then. He climbed into the driver's seat as Mickey and Layla piled in, doors closing behind them. Tommy turned the ignition. The engine rumbled to life and they pulled away from the pumps back onto the open highway. The van setting off in convoy once more. Chapter 31. Tommy drove on through the deserted landscape, everyone in the van seemingly lost in their own thoughts. Despite the bright blue sky overhead, a darkness still hung over them after Dee's sacrifice. Tommy eased up, squinting at the barricade blocking the highway ahead. He could make out figures emerging from two vehicles. Even at a distance, the sunlight glinted off unmistakable weapons. You think it's National Guard? Layla said. They don't look like soldiers. Could be road pirates, Jimbo said. Tommy eyed the nearest one's military uniform and shook his head. It looks official. Jimbo leaned between the seats. Ram through, dude. Tommy glared back at him. I'm not ramming anything. He pulled up slowly, the other vans coming to a halt behind him. He lowered the window as a bearded man wearing camouflage and wielding a shotgun swaggered over. Well, howdy, folks. Hate to trouble you, but me and my crew are gonna need all your supplies before we let you through. Tommy tightened his grip on the steering wheel, hiding his shaking hands. We've got sick people with us. How about we share some medicine and food? That would help us both. The man took a half step back and inclined his head. When you say sick. Withdrawal, Mickey said. The man grinned. Oh, well in that case, we'll be taking it all. Unless you want to taste buckshot. Tommy chewed his lip. They were blocked with no room to turn around. We're not giving up all our supplies. You lot traveling together? Yeah, we're just trying to get home, man. You look like good kids. Here's what I'll do. I'll save you the effort of unloading your supplies. Instead, you'll be getting out of the van and handing over the key. He shrugged a shoulder. And because I'm feeling in a charitable kind of mood, you can take the rest of your convoy and go. The man aimed the shotgun at Tommy. What's it to be? Make the smart choice now. Leave your van, then be on your way. Best give the dude what he wants, Jimbo said. Layla nodded and unclipped her seatbelt. All right, Tommy said, raising his hands. Mickey slammed his fist against the window. We can't just let them take our stuff. Tommy glared at him. You got a better idea that don't involve getting shot. There's more of us than them, Mickey said. If we rush them, then we all die, Layla cut in. She turned to Tommy, her eyes pleading. We gotta give them what they want, Tommy. Whatever it takes to save our skins. Tommy nodded. He eased open the door. Stay here. I'm gonna talk with them. Ignoring the protests behind him, he approached the leader, hands raised. The man eyed him as Tommy stopped a few feet away. I reckon we got off on the wrong foot. He held out a hand. Name's Tommy. The man lowered his shotgun a fraction. You think I give a crap? We're trying to get to Salt Lake City. You're right though, we do have extra food and meds, but we can't give up the van. What if we split it 50-50 with you? Help each other out. The man smirked. And if we just take it all? Tommy nodded. You could, but we'll fight you for every damn can, and some of your boys might not walk away from that. The man eyed Tommy a moment before barking out a laugh. Well, damn, look at you, bargaining like your ass isn't on the line. He raised his shotgun. Now, I'm not here to negotiate. Toss the keys and get your people. A gunshot cracked. Blood sprayed from the man's head and he dropped to the ground. The other robbers moved. Another gunshot rang out. And another. Tommy whirled as Zero lowered his rifle, a cold look in his eyes. What the hell, Zero? Zero stared back, stone-faced. You were wasting time. We need to keep moving. He turned away, ejecting the spent shell casings as the rest of the group emerged cautiously from their vehicles. Tommy grabbed Zero's shoulder. "We could have talked our way through. You didn't need to kill them." Zero scoffed. "Keep dreaming that hippie liberal bullcrap. We do what we need to survive out here, or we die." He yanked his shoulder free and walked off. Fists clenched, Tommy started after him, but Layla pulled him back. "Forget it, Tommy, let's just see what we can find." The group spread out to search the roadblock, an uneasy silence hanging over them. Tommy couldn't get the image of Zero coldly gunning down those men out of his head. Killing the undead was one thing, but killing the living seemed a step too far. They moved among the makeshift barricade of battered vehicles parked across the highway. The fenced-in area beyond appeared to serve as the robbers' compound. Tommy spotted a small concrete shelter just inside the perimeter, likely where they slept. A stockpile of fuel cans stood lined up by a rusty tanker truck. Crates of preserved food, medicine, tools, and weapons were stacked around the shelter. "Jackpot, baby," Jimbo whooped, opening a large footlocker spilling over with guns and ammo. "Looks like these psychos were loaded for war." Tommy grimaced as Zero began distributing the weapons and ammo from the stash. The ends would help them survive, perhaps, but the cold execution still gnawed at him. Layla appeared at his side. "Try not to let it eat you up. I don't like his methods either, but Zero's mind is set on survival, above all else." "Doesn't make it right. We're supposed to be the good guys here." Layla gave his arm a comforting squeeze. "Come on, let's see if we can find anything useful in these vehicles." They searched the parked trucks and vans, recovering tools, tarps, camping gear, and other supplies. But Tommy couldn't shake his disgust over profiting from Zero's handiwork. The man's capacity for violence deeply unsettled him, despite understanding its necessity out here, and where it might ultimately lead them, if left unchecked. "There's no way we're fitting all this in the vans," Tommy said. Zero shook his head and began lugging amps from the back of his van. "We need this. Amps and guitars just waste space." Roxy bristled. "Our instruments are part of who we are." Tommy held up a hand. "Nobody's leaving instruments, but Zero's right. Survival is priority now over music." Nick stared down at a guitar case covered in stickers. "Far as I see it, we won't be playing nothing if we're dead." He kicked the guitar case. "Wake up, man. Ain't no damn music careers until this thing's over." A tense silence passed. Layla stepped up and removed her bass from the vehicle. "He's right. We'll find new gear, but we can't replace each other if we don't get moving." One by one, the others handed over their instruments with muted resignation. Tommy swallowed hard as he passed his treasured guitar to Jimbo. Roxy lingered a moment longer, before finally adding Dee's guitar to the pile. They redistributed the weight in the back of the vans, and the others crammed inside. Tommy gazed down at the dead men, and wondered whether they would rise as zombies. But they stared blankly at the sky. "What should we do with them?" Zero strode past and picked through the men's jackets. "We take what we can and get back on the road." "I meant about burying them, or something." Zero looked up over his shoulder and shook his head. He retrieved radios from the men's belts and rose to his feet. The radio let out a static hiss. Zero tested one and mumbled something. A voice crackled through the speaker. Zero scanned the area, narrowing his eyes. "We need to leave." Tommy stared at the gaping hole in the bearded man's forehead. "I can't believe you shot them." "I did what needed doing, Tommy. You can thank me later." He marched back towards his van. Tommy met Layla's eyes and shook his head. "Tommy," Zero called back. "I said, we need to leave. Now." Episode 15. Chapter 33. The van rumbled down the empty highway as Tommy drove on in brooding silence. Mickey lay curled up in the back in fitful sleep, while Layla and Jimbo stared from the window. Tommy kept replaying Zero gunning down those men, their bodies hitting the asphalt, the bullet wounds in their head. The cold brutality of it gnawed at him. He'd come to terms with taking down zombies. That was necessary. It was life against death. But this felt different, as if pieces of their humanity had been ripped away. "That was intense back there," Layla's voice cut through the silence. "With Zero, I mean." Tommy's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Intense?" He straight up executed those men in cold blood. He shook his head, the muscles around his jaw tight. It was murder. Plain and simple. I agree it was extreme. Layla placed a hand on Tommy's arm. But without him taking action the way he did, we might have lost our supplies and be a van down. Or worse. But what have we lost instead? From the back seat, Jimbo scoffed. Oh, come on. Zero's always been into guns. I ain't shocked he iced those dudes soon as an excuse presented. He leaned forward. Way back, we played some real craphole biker bar outside Austin. Show went south fast and a riot kicked off. Bodies and bottles flying everywhere. But Zero whips out this freaking hand cannon from the van. Shut that riot down real quick so we could all get clear. Jimbo chuckled. Tommy just stared stonily ahead. Not saying I always dig his methods, Jimbo said. Just that he's never been shy about using force when pushed. Great, Tommy said. So we've got a psycho to worry about as well as zombies and bandits. Layla let out a sigh. What Zero did was extreme. But I'm sure his conviction comes from past trauma too. We all have our demons, Tommy. Maybe they just manifest in different ways. I know, but it still doesn't sit right him being judge, jury, and executioner. It's messed up, you know. We're supposed to have laws. Laws? Layla laughed bitterly. It's the Wild West out there. There's no laws. Jimbo nodded. She's right, dude. What the world was ain't what the world is. Things have shifted, you know. I get that. Obviously, I get that. It's just... Tommy couldn't find the words. It's just different, Jimbo said. This time last week, we were on the road trying to pick up some new guitar strings. Yeah, Tommy shook his head. And now our guitars are lying with those bodies. He raised a finger. You know, if the police investigate, they're going to find our DNA all over that crime scene. Layla sniffed. If being the operative word there. Tommy, Jimbo's right. What things were like isn't how things are now. Things have changed. Maybe things will get back to how they were, but until they do, we need to focus on survival. Tommy jerked a thumb towards the shotgun now riding in the back. You want to talk about survival? Don't you think it's dangerous having all these weapons around? What if Mickey has a freak out? What if one of us loses our cool? Or the thing goes off by accident? Or one of us gets hit by friendly fire during a skirmish? Layla nodded. So we keep each other in check. Make sure desperation doesn't turn us into monsters, too. Dude, a deep frown etched Jimbo's features. We keep the weapons. It's a bad idea taking them into a zombie fight. But if the living start messing with us, we've got an answer. Tommy's nostrils flared. Right. What is it Zero always says? An armed society's a polite society. Yeah, try telling that to the parents of school shooting victims. Jimbo shook his head. Tommy, you're thinking about this all wrong. That world doesn't exist anymore. You think there's schools right now? We've got more urgent things to worry about. Maybe once this zombie crap is dealt with, we can get back to debating this stuff. But for now, dude, things are what they are. Still, I think we can try talking first. You're right, Layla said. But those men weren't exactly being peaceful. Tommy glared at her. But Zero just killed them. He did, but frankly, his skills may keep us alive out here, as much as they unsettle us. Tommy slowly exhaled, the weight of responsibility pressing down. We can't have members deciding unilaterally who lives and who dies. He's a pragmatist, Layla said. We didn't have time for debate and he made a decision. He's got to live with that as much as the rest of us. Jimbo looked between them. Yeah, but we're still here. And they're not. A soft groan emerged from the back, and Mickey slowly sat up, rubbing his eyes. What are you all talking about? Jimbo glanced at him. Hey man, you okay? Yeah, just a headache. He leaned back on his seat. But we're alive, thanks to Zero. Air whistled through Tommy's nose. He shot them, Mickey. Killed them. Mickey seemed to ponder this for a moment. He saved us, Tommy. Layla nodded. Yes, he did. Zero the hero. Mickey grinned. Hey, that rhymes. He's no hero, Tommy said. What do you mean? He protected us when we needed it most, man. He's a hero in my books. Tommy sighed. I guess. I can see why you'd think that. It's just hard to reconcile, you know? Tommy, my dude, Jimbo said. I think what you're struggling with is the idea that our world has changed. It's not black and white anymore. It's about survival now. Tommy glanced at Jimbo, his shoulders slumping. Maybe you're right. I worry about what we're becoming in the process of surviving. I don't know about you, but I don't want to end up being an asshole, surviving with a bunch of assholes. Jimbo grinned. Hey, I used to be in a hardcore band called A Bunch of Assholes. Mickey snorted out a laugh. No, you didn't. I know. Funny though. Layla placed a hand on Tommy's shoulder. We'll find our way through this together. We'll make sure we don't lose ourselves in the process. The van fell into silence, each person lost in their thoughts. The road stretched ahead, endless and uncertain. But for now, they had each other, and in a world turned to crap, that was something to hold on to. Chapter 34. The open Nevada highway unfurled under the late afternoon sun, an endless road of cracked blacktop dotted only by sagebrush. Layla drove now, freeing Tommy to brood and Mickey to snore. Jimbo leaned between their seats, his running travelogue helping to pass the time. Whoa, check that weird circle of cars out there. He pointed to the right. Tommy followed his gaze to several dozen vehicles, parked tightly in concentric rings just off-road. Many had doors flung open, traces of long-abandoned occupants. In the circle's center sat a pyre of ash and blackened bones. Bet it was a quarantine zone or something, Jimbo said. Round everyone up infected, torch the middle. Cold man. Tommy suppressed a shudder. They passed ransacked cars, drifts of belongings spilled across the asphalt, corpses in various states of decay, marks of a society unraveling at speed. By late afternoon, the Nevada landscape stretched out in front of them, a desolate expanse of dust and shadow. Looks like we're coming up on Winnemucca, Tommy said, breaking the silence. He glanced at the others, their faces lit by the fading light. About damn time, Mickey muttered, shifting in his seat. Check it out, Jimbo pointed ahead. What's that? Tommy squinted at the horizon. A large, fenced-off camp sprawled across the dusty terrain, its outlines hazy in the gathering dusk. Details emerged as they neared. Guard towers, military vehicles, throngs of people in lines, and a large sign spelling out Camp Hope. Looks like a FEMA camp, Layla said. Never thought I'd be so happy to see one. Jimbo snorted. Wouldn't let Zero hear you say that. No, Tommy said. Layla's right. This is a good sign, don't you see? It means the government's got this. Explains why everywhere's been so quiet, Layla said. We've been on the road. Must have missed the announcements and stuff. Crackling static cut in. He took the radio from Layla as Roxy's voice filtered through. You see that up ahead? What's the plan? Tommy keyed the mic. Looks official. Maybe National Guard. Layla thinks it's a FEMA camp. We're gonna check it out. Bad call, man. Zero's voice broke in. I warned you before about getting sucked into government camps. Once they process you in, we'll never leave. That's what FEMA wants. Over. But we might be able to shelter and regroup, Tommy said. Get some real rest, fresh supplies. I don't know about you, but I'm done with eating all this processed crap. I could murder a carrot. No, Tommy, Zero said. As soon as you step inside, you become a ward of the state. The globalist plan is unfolding just like I was telling you. Disarm citizens, making us dependent, then impose Agenda 21. Tommy squeezed his eyes shut as Zero ranted on. He was too drained for another conspiracy clash. Layla took back the radio. We're beat and starving. Got no choice but to try our luck here. The radio went silent as they approached the barrier blocking the highway. Beyond the fences, the camp bustled with purpose and energy so long absent elsewhere. Medical tents, mess halls, and endless rows of huts extended for what seemed like miles, with soldiers standing vigilant guard. Despite his unease, Tommy felt drawn to the simple promise of hot food, solid walls, and news from Philly. They crept forward until finally pulling up at the barrier. Tommy lowered his window as a young guard in a mask approached. Morning, folks. Welcome to Camp Hope. We're advising everyone to seek shelter in the camp here for safety. You know it really isn't safe out there. Tommy nodded. Yeah, my friends and I have been traveling a while. Anything you got would help. The guard nodded. We can get you registered, meals, and a place to sleep. What are your names? Before Tommy could answer, Zero marched past, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "We don't need charity handouts or registration numbers, comrade." He turned to Tommy's window. "This is exactly what they want. Make us tadpoles in their system. Wake up, Tommy, I told you this was coming." The young guard backed up a step, hand raised. "Whoa, buddy. Let's stay calm, huh? We're just trying to provide aid to citizens, not threaten." "Save your globalist lies," Zero said. "You ain't locking us in your grid like good little slaves." Tommy jumped out to intervene before things escalated further. "Zero, man, let's take it easy, yeah?" Holding up his hands, he stepped over to steer Zero away from the nervous guards. "Look, man, we're beat and need the help. Let's just cooperate, but insist we retain the right to leave later, okay?" Zero wrenched his shoulder away, his eyes blazing. "You all go right ahead then, but I warned you every step what they've been planning for decades." Tommy turned to the guards with a weak shrug. "Sorry about my friend here. We've just had some rough times lately. About that registration." The guard nodded. "I get it. Rough times for everyone. Let me call my superior. We'll sort this out." As he spoke into his radio, Nick stepped out of the van, his voice calm but firm. "Zero, you're making a scene. You're scaring people. We're all on edge, but this isn't helping." Zero cocked an eyebrow. "You don't see it, Nix. They're controlling us, taking away our freedom under the guise of protection. I told you this would happen, didn't I?" "Yes." He rolled his eyes. "In great detail." "Exactly. And now it's happening right before your very eyes and you still can't see it. How much of a red pill do you people need?" Nix took a step closer, his voice low. "I hear you, Zero. But right now, we need food and a safe place to sleep." Jimbo, now out of the van, placed a hand on Nix's shoulder. "Come on, dude. We're all tired. Let's just rest and reassess in the morning." Zero looked from face to face and shook his head. "Go ahead. But if you think I'm stepping one foot inside a FEMA camp, you're more stupid than I thought." "I understand there's been some concern of internet rumors," a guard said. "But let me assure you, our sole purpose is to provide aid and shelter to those in need. It's too dangerous out there. We advise you to stay in the camp for your safety." "Like hell we will," Zero said, his eyes narrowing. "What are you hiding, huh? You've got everyone locked up like cattle in there. Death Squad's not arrived yet?" "Sir, please can you not raise your voice? Tell me this isn't your plan all along." "Hey man, let's just relax," Tommy said. "Stay out of this." Zero slipped his rifle from his shoulder. Nix reached for Zero's arm. "Zero, don't." "Look, we just want to reach our families," Tommy said. "We need to keep moving." "Fine," the guard said. "But you've been warned. It's dangerous out there." "We know," Tommy said. "Thanks." He turned to Zero. "Let's just focus on getting back home, yeah?" Zero pursed his lips and backed away towards his van. Tommy turned back to the guard. "I'm trying to get to Philadelphia to find my family. Any news?" The guard's expression softened. "Philadelphia. I have family there too. We don't have much in terms of communication with the East Coast." "Ah, oh well. Tell you what I can do. We still have a duty of care to the public. If you need any water or food, I'd be happy to send some your way." Tommy smiled. "That would be amazing." The guard spoke into his radio. "Any chance you can tell us what the situation is like up ahead?" "Can't say much." The guard glanced over his shoulder. "All I know is that the outbreak isn't showing signs of getting better. You'd be safer in here." "We understand the risk." The guard nodded, and soon, a group of FEMA employees wheeled out a pallet loaded with water bottles and boxes of dried foods. Tommy, Layla, Roxy, and Spike moved quickly to load their vans with the supplies. Zero stood a little apart, his arms crossed, watching the scene with a deep frown etched on his face. Mickey, standing next to the van, kept glancing between Zero and the others. As Nix moved forward to help with the supplies, Zero grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Don't bother, Nix. I'm not trusting any of that stuff in my van. It's just food and water. We need this." Zero shook his head. No, you don't see it, do you? They could be tracking us with this, or worse. I'm not taking any chances. Tommy glared at Zero. Listen, man, we need these supplies. We've got a long road ahead, and we can't afford to be picky. Zero stared at Tommy. Fine, take their handouts. But I'm keeping my van clean of their control. As the loading finished, the guard opened the barriers for them to leave. Watch your backs, the guard said, his voice grave. There's no telling what you'll run into out there. Thanks for the heads up. Tommy climbed into the passenger seat of their van, his mind a swirl of thoughts, concern for his family, the uncertainty of the road ahead, and the constant tension within their group. Layla took the driver's seat, her expression serious but focused. The van rolled through the barrier, leaving Camp Hope behind. Chapter 35. The sun dipped low, casting a blood-red smear across the sky. Damn, Mickey said. That was too close back there. Too damn close, Tommy said. Lucky you were there to talk those FEMA dudes around, Jimbo said. Yeah, Layla said. You did good back there. Thanks, Tommy said. Zero's a loose cannon, but you got us through, Mickey said. Didn't have much choice. Tommy clenched and unclenched his fists, feeling the familiar itch of his straight-edge tattoos. We can't let Zero's paranoia jeopardize our safety, Layla said. What if next time it's not just a standoff? Yeah, man, Mickey said. We gotta keep a tighter leash on him. Tommy clenched his jaw, his gaze fixed on the endless stretch of road before them. We've all got our demons, but we're family. We can't turn on each other now. We'll talk to Zero. Get him to see reason. Good luck with that, Jimbo said. Let's keep moving, Tommy said. That's all we can do. Man, I don't know, Mickey said. He damn near got us killed back there. Can't say I blame him for being paranoid, Layla said. Those people, they're trapped. Trapped? Mickey scoffed. They're safe. That's more than we can say for ourselves. Is it, though? Layla glanced back at him. You think that's what safety looks like? Better than being zombie chow. Look, we're all shaken up, Tommy said, trying to keep his voice steady. But we need to stick together. If we turn on each other, we're as good as dead. Tommy's right, Jimbo said. We gotta watch our backs. If Zero's losing it, we need to help him, not abandon him. Fine, Mickey said. But if he goes off the rails again, it's on all of us. Agreed, Layla said, her eyes meeting Tommy's. We should find somewhere to rest for the night, Tommy said. I'm sure we'll figure things out after a good night's sleep. Maybe we should keep a closer eye on him, just in case. Agreed, Tommy said. He thinks we're all blind to the truth, that we can't see what's really going on. I don't want him to feel like he's alone. None of us do, Layla said. We'll keep an eye on him, make sure he knows we're all in this together. Good idea. Tommy flipped the map open on the dashboard. We should find somewhere to camp near Elko, then head out to Salt Lake City first thing. From there, we'll figure out our next steps, but for now we just keep moving, keep surviving. Sounds like a plan, Layla said, her grip on the wheel relaxing slightly as she fixed her gaze on the road ahead. The van continued to trudge along the deserted Nevada highway, the last light of day slowly fading into dusk. Tommy reached for the radio, his voice steady, but tinged with fatigue. Roxy, Zero. We're going to look for a place to stay for the night somewhere between here and Elko. Let's stay alert and stick close. The radio crackled to life as Roxy responded, her voice clear. Got it, Tommy. We'll keep our eyes peeled for a good spot. Zero's voice came next. Understood. We'll follow your lead. Over. Tommy hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Zero. About back at Camp Hope. I know things got heated, but we need to keep looking ahead. Stay united. There was a brief silence and an unfamiliar voice cut through the static of the radio. You think you can just kill our crew and get away with it? Tommy and Layla exchanged a look, the atmosphere turning tense. When we find you, you're dead. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Tommy gripped the radio tighter, his mind racing. Tommy. Layla's voice trembled. Who was that? Tommy shook his head. his eyes scanning the darkening horizon. I don't know, but it sounds like we've got more than just zombies to worry about. Jimbo gripped Tommy's and Layla's headrests. You think they're serious? There's no telling, Tommy said. But we can't take any chances. We need to be more vigilant than ever. What should we do? Layla asked. What else can we do? He glanced at the side mirror, checking the road behind them. We keep moving. Episode 16, Chapter 36. Tommy's hand trembled as he gripped the radio tight. Best floor it, yeah? Layla slammed the accelerator down. The van fishtailed before rocketing forward, the landscape blurring past. Tommy clung to his seat as they tore into the gathering dusk. What the hell was that about? Jimbo said. Someone got an axe to grind over Zero blasting those road pirates? Sure sounded that way. Tommy craned his neck to scan the road behind them, his thoughts racing. He needed to speak to the other bands. But with open radio channels, that was a risky move. He stared down at the radio, expecting that voice to cut through at any moment. But the handset remained silent. Beside him, Layla struggled wrestling the wheel as the van hit potholes at dangerous speeds. They needed to rally and form a plan. We can't just keep fleeing blindly, Layla said through gritted teeth. They'll run us into the ground. If we halt, though, it gives away our location, Tommy said. Might have to risk it, though. From the back, Jimbo leaned forward. Bust a U-turn. We outnumber those dudes. We can set up an ambush, take them down before they know what's hit them. Mickey shook his head. Don't be crazy, man. You're just assuming there's more of us. We don't know nothing about who those guys are. Could just make us easier targets. So, what? We gonna drive all night hoping to lose mystery psychos threatening to murder us? We're sitting ducks on these roads, dude. We need to make a stand. Tommy held up a hand. We need a strategy, not panic. He took a deep breath. I'm pulling us off-road. We need to figure out our next step face-to-face. We can't use those radios for now. Layla slowed the van as Tommy signaled Roxy and Zero to pull over. They bounced onto the roadside gravel. The sudden swerving and loss of speed sent Mickey and Jimbo lurching sideways with muttered curses. Rattling into the brush, Layla parked them behind scraggly bushes and cut the engine. The other vans followed suit. In the abrupt silence, Tommy let out a slow breath. Everyone out for a quick meet. We gotta make a battle plan now. The other band members filed out to huddle by Tommy's grill, the engine clicking as it cooled. Dusk painted everything in muted grays as the sky continued darkening. Tommy raised his hands before complaints started, his voice low and urgent. I know. Pulling over opens us to attack, but we need a strategy beyond just running down the highway. He swept his gaze across the group. If they want payback for earlier, seems we gotta stand firm and face them head on. Jimbo nodded. Damn straight. We make our stand right here. Let those road pirates roll up for an ass-kicking. A few voices rumbled in agreement, but Nick shook his head. Hold up. We know zilch about who these people are. Could be 2 guys, could be a whole damn platoon. We need intel. Roxy drifted over next to Zero, her jacket pulled tight against the encroaching night chill. Nix is right. Roadside ambush might just make us easy pickings. We need to scout the situation before charging in blind. There's no time for that, Mickey said. While we sit here chatting it up, scary voice dude is coming to carve us up. Okay, look, both sides have fair points, Tommy said. We're exposed out here, so we need to keep moving. He gestured down the shadowy road behind them. But an unknown enemy is just as dangerous if we react blindly without more details. Exhaling slowly, he met their eyes one by one, feeling his responsibility for each. We need proper reconnaissance first. 2 volunteers to double back stealthily, gather what intel they can on terrain, numbers, weapons, then race back with a report. He glanced around the tight circle of faces. I wouldn't ask if the stakes weren't high for all of us. Spike flipped his cigarette butt and stepped forward. Ah, hell, I never been called stealthy but can try playing spy if needed. Beside him, Layla also raised her hand. I can help. Okay then. Spike and Layla will scout back, learn what you can, then return fast as able. We'll shelter in place awaiting your report. Zero shook his head. Let's not rush into things, yeah? Let's hear some more ideas before you start splitting us up on a dime. Mickey nodded. We could camp out here. We take all precautions. Kill lights, hunker down and watch each other's backs for the night. Let them pass. Zero rubbed his chin. Maybe. Could leave us open to attack if they find us, though. Roxy nodded. We can't sit here hoping things will work out. Tommy glanced her way, his brow furrowed. What did you have in mind? Before everything went to crap, I did this drive a dozen times. I know the back road's pretty solid. Could get us on those roads if we want to vanish a while. Throw them off our scent. You really want to risk these dirt paths in the middle of the damn night? Spike said. One puncture out in the wastes and we be zombie food by dawn. Roxy cocked an eyebrow. You got a better idea? I say we double back to that FEMA camp instead. Strength in numbers and shelter to boot. Zero scoffed. Right. Good idea putting our fates in the hands of military imprisonment. Hey, why not just ship ourselves off to Gitmo? At least we know that place will be secure. Stow it with the propaganda, Roxy snapped, glaring over at him. Last thing we need is you frothing up more chaos. It's not about chaos, it's about avoiding their traps. Okay, we're going down this road again, huh? Zero rolled his eyes. I think it's clear what we need to do. No. Tommy crossed his arms. No offense, man, but we're not looking for excuses to shoot our way out. Zero held up a hand. Just hear me out. We use those radios to run some deception tactics, broadcast a false position to misdirect them. Tommy blinked. Could definitely work in theory. Cloak and dagger stuff while we ghost towards Elko. Bait and switch, baby, Jimbo chuckled. Make them mugs chase their tails trying to pin us down. All right, unless anyone objects, we try it Zero's way. Tommy began to pace. Broadcast we're doubling back to Camp Hope, while we carry on for Elko. Should buy us enough lead time to lose any tails. He pointed at Zero. But no hero stuff, got it? We steer clear of confrontation. Zero returned a mocking half salute. Sure thing, boss man. We do it your way. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The bands dispersed to prepare. As the vehicles rumbled to life, Tommy glimpsed Zero regarding him sidelong. Back in the van, Tommy stared down at the radio as the last light faded. He took a steadying breath and keyed the mic. All right, folks, we gotta make tracks back towards Camp Hope if we're gonna plead our case. Here's hoping they'll let us in after dark, Roxy responded. But we might need your sweet talk skills again getting us past the gate. Maybe if I bake them some cookies too, they'll take pity, Tommy said, trying to sound relaxed despite the pulse pounding in his skull. He kept one eye glued to the highway, half expecting headlights to come screaming out of the darkness in pursuit. If cookies don't work, maybe we can bribe them with a private concert, Zero said. Though if Tommy's singing, they might just lock us out faster. A few strained chuckles answered before Roxy keyed in. As tempting as Tommy's siren call might be, perhaps we offer watch duty shifts instead. It's settled then, Tommy said. We'll offer up our questionable music talents and our first batch of burned cookies as tribute. Sounds good, Roxy said. It's worth a shot, Zero said. Tommy set the radio down and waited for a response or taunt or any hint that their pursuers had heard their message. He watched the road. Dead silence. Tommy resisted the urge to hail Roxy and Zero again. Layla reached over to squeeze his wrist. It was a smart play. Have faith. They sat immobile for agonizing minutes, but no vehicles rode along the highway. He thought of Neve and Sean again, the need to carry on for them, eclipsing every other drive now. What should we do? Layla asked. Tommy glanced down at the radio. I don't know. Maybe I could mention going to Camp Hope again or something. Layla shook her head. Bad idea. They might have heard the previous messages. Yeah, and they might not. He puffed out a breath. I hate not knowing. Finally, he clicked the mic again. I can see Camp Hope ahead. We sure this is the right play? Yep, Roxy said. I see it now, Zero said. Let's hope they've got some spare beds. My back is killing. Not the only thing that's killing, Tommy muttered. He turned to Layla. We should get moving. The engine rumbled to life and Layla pulled the van back onto the highway. Tommy held the radio tight, scanning for threats in the darkness. And with each mile closer toward Elko, the knots in his gut twisted tighter. The first buildings glimmered past a rise. Elko, and hopefully reprieve from pursuit. Chapter 37. As the band's vehicles approached, Elko's outskirts emerged from the darkness dotted with floodlights, illuminating a towering barricade. Layla eased up, squinting. Guard towers loomed over the perimeter, with figures patrolling catwalks armed with rifles. Unease rippled through the van. Layla blew out a slow breath. Looks like some kind of military facility. Maybe we should double back, find a way around. Jimbo scoffed. And go where? Dopes back there probably still chasing their tails. He leaned between the front seats, nodding towards the barricade. I say we nose on in. Clearly these dudes ain't messing around. Safety in numbers. Might be able to help us out. Tommy hesitated, weighing options. He toggled the radio. Roxy, Zero, you seeing this up ahead? Yep, clear as day, Zero replied. Camp Hope, looking good. Tommy clicked the mic again. I say we proceed in carefully. If the scene feels off, we just politely retreat. But we need rest and shelter tonight pretty badly. Agreed, Roxy said. We case the scene at least. Gear up in case things go sideways. They approached the reinforced gate slowly. Heavily armed men and women eyed them warily, fingers resting on triggers. A muscular bald man stepped forward as Tommy lowered his window. Evening, folks. Name's Tommy. My friends and I have had a rough go lately just trying to find safe harbor. What are the chances you might have space to take in some weary travelers for the night? The guard's stern face cracked slightly with a hint of sympathy, but suspicion still lingered in his stare. You'll have to pardon our precautions, friend. But plenty of desperate folk would lie, cheat or kill for the security we worked hard to carve out of this place. His eyes assessed the vehicles critically. So what's your business passing through these parts exactly? Tommy licked his lips. We're in bands. We were on tour back in California. We're trying to get back home to Philly. The guard whistled. That's a long way. Tommy sniffed. You're telling us. The guard looked inside. Any bites, infections? You're not hiding some infected friend in the back or anything? We're all clear, man. Good. Looks like you're pretty stocked up in there. You looking to trade? Maybe. All right. You can come in. Leave any weapons in your vans, and if there's any trouble, you'll have to leave. Thank you. Layla nodded. We really are very grateful. The guard waved the vehicles through the gate into a parking area. All right, folks, everyone out. Weapons stay locked up. His stern face had softened, almost welcoming now. As they exited the vans, Tommy took in more details of the fortifications and layout. The main street bisected a small town that looked halfway converted into a military base. Sandbags and concrete barriers formed checkpoints at major intersections. The bald guard strode over. Name's Reggie. I'll give you the nickel tour so you know the score around here. He gestured for them to follow, his boots crunching on gravel. When those freaks first came boiling out of the cities, small towns like ours were overwhelmed fast. We barricaded inside the sheriff's office at first, losing good folks left and right trying to maintain order. Layla fell in beside them. But you managed to rally and take back control, it seems. Reggie nodded. Most abandoned the area, but some of us refused to quit our home. We scavenged the highway, nearby farms, anywhere to find supplies for fortifying this place. Cleared the streets inch by inch until we carved out this safe zone you see now. Hell of an achievement, Tommy said. Reggie shrugged. Maybe so. But we paid a heavy price. Of course, threat still lurks all around, but we handle things best we can. Tommy cleared his throat. We passed a FEMA camp earlier. Camp Hope. Are you affiliated with that at all? Reggie's mouth twisted. You mean those government handout camps with enforced curfews? No interest being herded around like cattle after all the blood we shed claiming this place as our own. He turned down a side street. We've seen their buses come through encouraging everyone to board up for proper aid and housing. He snorted. Just rounding up survivors like livestock to lord over. Can't say I blame you, Tommy said. Seems you carved out something good on your own terms here. It's home. That's what matters. Reggie nodded towards a large communal hall beside a church. Food line's still open if you folks are hungry. We can talk more inside. Tommy followed him in. After days subsisting on canned beans and protein bars, the smell of cooked food made his mouth water. Long tables filled most of the hall, a melting pot of families, former soldiers, and random survivors, All ate and talked beneath strings of light bulbs. The outpost was a buzz of activity, despite the late hour. Children chased each other laughing, while adults tended tasks like darning clothes or cleaning weapons. The atmosphere felt jarring after endless days among only the band. Reggie found them space at a table before leaving to fetch food. Mickey shook his head. Man, oh man, forget the food. Just soaking in the normalcy here is worth stopping in. Layla nodded, tension easing from her face for the first time since the radio threat. It's pretty inspiring seeing what people can accomplish when bonded together. Reggie returned balancing plates of hot stew. Bonds here run deeper than blood after all we endured together. But we welcome good folks to help keep this place alive. As they ate, Reggie waved a hand towards various people around the hall. Take Dale over there, for example. He owned the local auto shop before things went belly up. Now he keeps our vehicles running and fortified up with metal plates. Dale looked up from where he sat cleaning a rifle part, raising a grease-stained hand in greeting. And that woman stacking chairs is Teresa. She was a middle school teacher. Now she runs classes for the young uns and helps run the kitchen. Mickey paused eating, his eyes widening. Whoa. Back up. You still have actual school here? With kids learning math and junk? Reggie chuckled. Well, maybe not quadratic equations these days, but we've got a mix of parents and former teachers doing basic reading, writing, some history and such. Nothing fancy grade-wise, but structure and learning matter for giving kids hope beyond just survival. Teresa set a chair down and made her way over, smiling warmly. I don't know how much they're retaining these days, but we make do. Mickey snorted. Man, if I had algebra class in the apocalypse, I would have just pieced out. Oh, I don't know. Layla grinned and elbowed him. Remember how you were the one who handled dividing our gig payouts? Yeah, okay. Mickey laughed. Maybe math matters a little out here. Reggie waved over a muscular, gray-haired woman assembling a rifle. Our fortifications are Kristen's domain. She was a mason before. Now she oversees wall reinforcements. Kristen clicked a rifle piece into place. My crew might not be pretty, but they can brick and mortar with the best of them. Impressive setup, Tommy said, shaking his head. It wasn't easy, Reggie said, but consolidate enough folks together and you can achieve a lot. Having access to hardware shops and resources around town made it possible. Tommy raised his coffee mug. I'll toast to that. What you carved out here goes beyond just surviving day to day. It's living. And that gives hope. We've been lucky we've kept the electricity running and we've still got warm running water. Seriously, you even have steady running water and power? That's huge. He regarded Tommy. The point is, we stuck together and carved this place out through cooperation and elbow grease. No government involvement needed. That's what matters most these days, I'd say. Yep. Tommy swallowed a chunk of beef. It's tough out there. We've Spartan quarters if you folks need a safe place to bunker down a while. And of course, you're welcome to a hot shower. Tommy exhaled. That'd be incredible, thank you. Reggie clasped Tommy on the shoulder. I'll leave you folks to eat in peace. We open up early if you want to resupply or upgrade any gear before heading out. As he moved off, the group dug into the first hot meal they'd enjoyed in weeks. Around mouthfuls, Mickey grinned. Man, I knew small-town folk could be welcoming, but this is above and beyond. Seriously, Tommy said, sopping up the last streaks of gravy with a piece of bread. These people fortified the place through sheer grit. Electricity, running water, defensible walls, it's amazing. They seem to have a good thing going here, Layla said. Zero paused. Yeah, they welcomed us in fast, almost too welcoming. Roxy rolled her eyes. Something on your mind there? He held up his hands. Just saying we shouldn't let our guard down completely, that's all. Here we go, Spike muttered. Zero nodded, pointing his fork at Roxy. We don't ultimately know these people or all their motives yet. Time out, Tommy put his spoon down. I know tensions are still high for all of us, but some faith in humanity wouldn't hurt sometimes. Zero glared over his bowl. Faith won't stop a knife in the back, Tommy boy. Tommy sighed. It's called optimism, man. As the group debated, snippets of conversation from nearby tables cut through. A pair of scavengers had just returned from a supply run to Idaho. They spoke in low tones about skirting the outskirts of Salt Lake City. "Can't believe you went so close to that hellhole. Once bandits and raiders moved in, the place was done for." His friend shook his head. "Wasn't that bad, actually. The Mormons dug in hard when things first turned ugly. Whole chunks of the city center are still functioning." "I heard the exact same thing," an older woman said from the next table. "My cousin was holed up there before coming here. Swears it's secured by militia types." The man next to her scoffed. "That's horse crap, Diane. Reggie said Salt Lake's been dark for days now. Overrun or full anarchy or some such." "All I know for sure is we give that place a wide berth no matter what," the first scavenger said. An icy chill crept down Tommy's spine. He met Layla's equally sobered gaze. Chapter 38. The next morning, Tommy awoke feeling truly rested for the first time since setting off on tour from Philly. The smell of coffee brewing coaxed him from his bed to meet Layla grinning in the communal kitchen. "Could get used to this, eh?" She topped off 2 mugs. No joke. Tommy inhaled the rich aroma before taking a sip. "Let's go check on the others. We should do a supply tally. Take on anything we critically need for the next leg while we have the chance." She looked Tommy up and down. "How was the shower?" "Amazing." "I know, right? Felt like I was covered in grit." He chuckled. "Yep. I don't know about you, but I feel like a new man." They took a seat with the others as a bowl of boiled eggs made its way down the table. Tommy peeled an egg and set it down to cool. "So what's the plan here? Do we hang around here a while or do we keep on toward Philly?" "Philly's still a long way off," Spike said. Tommy nodded, looking down. "Yup, but the longer we hang around, the longer it'll be. I just want to get back to my kid, you know?" Zero tilted his head. "I get the urgency, Tommy. But we should think this through before charging ahead." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Parts of Utah sound dicey at best. We could be heading into a war zone. Maybe we scout around first, get concrete intel on what areas are actually stable." Tommy sighed, glancing at Layla and Mickey. "I'm torn. I don't want to rush blindly if it puts everyone at risk, but I can't abandon Neve either." Layla put a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever we decide, we'll get through this together." Mickey stared into his coffee. "I'm with you to the end of the line whenever that may be." Tommy managed a small smile. "I appreciate that, Mickey." After a lingering silence, Tommy exhaled. "Okay. We gear up the best we can here, then carry on cautious but steady. We all watch each other's backs no matter what we find farther inland." The others murmured agreement and carried on eating. After breakfast, they traded supplies and tracked down Reggie to thank him again for the hospitality. "Happy to help out," Reggie said, shaking Tommy's hand. "You folks stay sharp out there. Take care of each other." Back in the van, Tommy sat in the driver's seat. As they pulled out of Elko, Layla kept scanning the road behind them. The radio crackled. "We're still coming for you, punks," a voice came. "You're already dead." To be continued. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Punks vs. Zombies. You can find out more about John Cronshaw and his work by visiting johncronshaw.com. Punks vs. Zombies is copyright John Cronshaw and Wyvern Books.